I'm going to call the Springfield City Council work session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon,
Here.
Councilor Weber, here, Councilor Mo,
Here.
Councilor Rodley, here, Councilor Buck,
Here.
and Councilor Stout.
Here. All right, we have two items this evening. The first one is the Springfield History Museum Advisory Committee interviews. And with Maddie as the staff person.
Hello, Council and Mayor Van Gordon. I am Maddie McGraw. I'm your museum curator. And we have two interviews scheduled for tonight. I'm going to read, this has been a long process, so I'm going to give you guys the background again. The museum committee had three vacant positions as of December 31st, 2025. One museum committee member reapplied and was directly appointed. Two applications were received for the remaining two vacant positions. One applicant was interviewed and approved at the March 9th, 2026 work session. And a third applicant had this committee as his third choice and then was added for interview by council. And so tonight on the schedule, we have two interviews, and I believe only one of our interviewees is here currently.
Have we contacted the second person? Are we expecting them?
We have contacted them, but haven't heard anything back.
Okay, then we will start with the first interview and see where we go from there.
All right, so I'll introduce you to Michael Aguilar.
Good evening, Council.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to City Council. Why are you interested in serving in the museum committee?
So I am new to Springfield, Oregon. I moved here from Salt Lake City, Utah, to accept a role in nonprofit work back in December. When I was in Salt Lake City and in Utah, I was pretty actively engaged, not only in local nonprofit work, but in local government. And I find that that's where local government, and then as a result of that, local boards and commissions, of which the Springfield Museum would be a part of. Just so happens that in my professional history, I've worked for a few museums. So I have a soft spot and I have some experience in that space. And so as I was looking at the opportunities available for service, because I'm new to town and I'm trying to get my feet wet and I've come to love Springfield in my very short period of time, I decided that because I have the experience in Salt Lake City, both working in nonprofit, both in building and sustaining relationships in government, and then working as a result of that in the museum world, that this opening, being as it is, I could add, I believe, some value to the work that needs to be done. So that is why I'm interested.
The Springfield Museum has a rotating exhibit space. One of the roles of the committee is to make recommendations for exhibits and programs. Can you give us an example of an exhibit you might recommend?
Yeah, currently, so I would love to do a deep dive on the archive of rotating exhibits, but there is a current so I'm a professional fundraiser. You might like that, you might not like that, because you never know I'm going to ask you for money. But Union Pacific is currently requesting solicitations for funds up to, I believe, like $30,000. Springfield is listed as one of two cities that could apply for funding through their Community Ties program. Eugene is the other one that could apply. So there's $30,000 on the table with Union Pacific that there could potentially be a partnership there. I would think that an exhibit around the history of the railroad here in Springfield, or a revamped exhibit on the history of the railroad or the future of the railroad, would be a wonderful opportunity for us, and one that we could collaborate on with Union Pacific to secure funds to make that happen.
And how do you think the work of the Springfield History Museum improves our community?
I think museums in general, they allow individuals to take a step into the past to know, and this kind of, I mean, I don't mean this to sound very cliche or cheesy, because I know everybody's like, oh, you need to know the history to understand the future. Having worked in the museum spaces for a significant portion of my life, I truly believe that by immersing yourself into culture, you're able to more fully understand the world around you, make more informed decisions, and understand people more fully. It opens your eyes. And so for, I think, Springfield, not only our residents or the residents of Springfield, but those who choose to visit us as a destination city, they have the opportunity to have their eyes opened to the wonderful impact that this city has had, not only on Oregon or on Lane County, but on America, as we were celebrating 250 years as a country. So I think that that's what is truly an opportunity of value for this organization.
All right. That was the last question.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Rodley.
Since Maddie's coming up, I'll ask some clarifying questions. If I remember correctly, and I didn't go back and look, the person who didn't show tonight also didn't show the last time. That's why we kicked this ahead so that we
I
could
think,
include
yeah.
them. Okay.
Yes.
And then there was another person that we interviewed last time, I think, who was
That would have
willing.
been Marta.
Yes.
Bridget?
Oh,
Bridget,
thank you.
yes.
See, people would know, because I wanted to make sure I've got everything
Mhm.
in the thing. So they were willing to interview last time in addition to tonight. Okay, that's all I needed.
Okay. So could you help us? How many appointments do we need to make? Is it one or two?
I think it's just one for tonight. Yes.
And so then effectively, it's between Bridget and Mr. Aguilar.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to start with their preferences? Counselor Buck?
I really appreciate how difficult you guys keep making these decisions on us. And I appreciate very much Bridget brings to the table. I think my inclination would be for Mr. Aguilar based on, his experience and enthusiasm and bringing a fresh perspective. So that would be my inclination.
Anybody else? Counselor Stout?
I'm also with Mr. Aguilar. I'm a huge rail fan. Love the idea.
Counselor Rodley?
I'll go with Mr. Aguilar as well.
All right. Counselor Weber?
Mr. Aguilar for me too.
Mr. Aguilar really presents himself well. I wish I could do that, but I'm for him.
All right. Well, I think it's Mr. Aguilar. And will you set it up on the next regular meeting so we can confirm it, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing is wastewater and stormwater user fees for fiscal year 2026 through 2027.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Stouter. I'm the Environmental Services Director for the City of Springfield, and with me is Jeff Pascal, City's Community Development Director. I think we have a PowerPoint. There it is to walk you through, and then we're open for conversation and discussion. So here tonight to present the annual user fee proposal for council consideration. I wanted to acknowledge Jeremy and Tatiana and DPW for their work in helping us put this together. With that, we'll get started. It's always I did that for Megan last week. There we go. Okay, we'll walk through with you the overview on revenue goals, a little bit about our discharge permits, talk about the systems that we are going to be going over tonight, our programs, and then the challenges associated with those programs, and then get to ultimately the rates, which everybody wants to talk about. The revenue goals for these programs, really, this is what funds our operations and maintenance programs for the city. It funds the majority of our capital improvement programs. These funds from user fees help us meet our regulatory obligations with our discharge permits. They help us maintain our capital reserves and then also maintain our fiscal health and credit rating. I'd note that user fees are the sole source of our operations and maintenance work, and they represent about 90 to 95% of all revenue we get year to date. Okay, these systems are large, complex systems. I have to put these on to read. So we have two components to the wastewater system. We have the local conveyance component that the city of Springfield owns and operates. And we have a regional MWMC component owned by MWMC, which is made up of Springfield, Eugene, and Lane County. There's over 250 miles of pipeline in Springfield in the wastewater system. And we have approximately 16 pump stations. All that gets pumped and conveyed to the regional plant at 410 River Avenue in Eugene. On the stormwater side, we have an ever-growing system. We have 182 miles of pipes, 6,500 catch basins or greater than 6,500 catch basins. Those numbers keep increasing. Lots of water quality structures, lots of surface waterways, numerous outfalls that discharge to the rivers and other waterways, and then a lot of miles of curb to sweep. And so the point here is that systems are large and complex. I wrote down here, we have an asset value of the regional system of over $500 million and probably more than that in the local systems. And so when you start thinking about cost of fixing these systems, replacing these systems as they age, we're talking about very large, complex, high dollar systems. There's challenges associated with maintaining these systems and in essence, meeting our discharge permits and what we call basically paying for clean water. You'll see them on your PowerPoint here, fixed operating costs, the ever aging infrastructure, the regulatory discharge permits, the things we've been talking about. I wanted to note, there's been a few things recently that's been taxing us here. Sustained high level cost inflation is impacting not only personnel services, but things like materials and services, chemicals we need to purchase for these systems. There's been significant financing volatility at the federal level and at the state level that's been causing us challenges. And then the regulatory uncertainty with the pending discharge permits, especially on the stormwater system, is something that we're seeing. And then, of course, there's ever-changing federal policy that is anyone's guess as to where we might be heading. And that seems to be going back and forth on a year-to-year basis. So with respect to our discharge permits, we have two. Stormwater permit was issued to us in 2023. It was issued to everybody, all the phase 2 general permittees in 2021. Springfield, along with several others, pushed back on some of the unreasonable expectations in that permit previously, and were successful in litigation to get a discharge permit that we were actually able to meet. It came with a reduced timeline. It came with a 3-year timeline instead of a 5-year timeline, and it expired midway through 2024. It was put on an administrative extension by DEQ as they worked to get us a new permit. We briefed you last week on that new permit process. We expect the new permit to be issued around July of 2026, depending on how long DEQ takes to respond to comments in the public review draft. That permit has a number of concerning elements in it. It's an ever ratcheting down of requirements. There's a number of things that are going to require the city to, that it's going to require us to do, that are going to come in the form of additional FTE requirements, additional time needed, additional dollars needed for meeting these mandates, some of which are going to be directly beneficial to water quality and some of which aren't. I won't elaborate on that since we talked last week. The wastewater permit is issued chiefly to MWMC, but Springfield and Eugene are also named on that permit. And it was a permit issued to us in 2022, late 22. We're expecting a renewal in 2027, and that lays the framework essentially for our wastewater operations and wastewater programs. Listed here is a group of programs that are funded with user fees. So basically anything that really impacts DPW on the stormwater wastewater side are funded with user fees. So our operations and maintenance programs, our education and outreach programs, the capital program, anything to do with development and post-construction and construction site runoff activities is funded with these fees, development review, those sorts of things in our billing and customer service. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff and he can talk to you a little bit about some of the factors affecting our rates.
Yeah, thank you. As Matt had mentioned, one of our factors is our assets. We have a large asset, as you saw in the wastewater system, several hundreds of miles of pipe. As an example, that aging system identified through the wastewater master plan adopted by the council in 2024, there's 130 miles of concrete pipe that we still have in the system that's anywhere from 45 to 80 plus years old. And so that's a factor. That's part of our I&I contribution. And so one of our goals that we've been working through is starting to get through that system of aging pipe. The other is just fixed and rising operational costs. One thing to note, and it'll be discussed later, but our fees are generated based on flow. We push water conservation, which is great. However, with that, we see pressures on revenue and then, but yet inflation pressures still on our materials and services. In addition, we still have some ongoing debt service obligations. And then, as Matt mentioned, the increasing regulatory obligations. So again, factors that guide our rates and what we use to set those or recommend what that rate recommendation is. The wastewater master plan, again, adopted by the council in 2024. As part of that wastewater master plan, we also presented a strategic financial plan with those goals of kind of maintaining a healthy fund, which we do have, and meeting all of our obligations and maintaining the city's assets. And then meeting that regulatory compliance. One idea is these are not planned. The rates are planned, not reactive. And so we're trying to keep that incremental and just making sure that the system and the funding mechanism is healthy. So here you see, this is just a comparison regionally. It's a point in time. It's a survey done in the end of December, and what it shows is based on the rates that were adopted by the council as part of the FY26 budget, where we compare to our regional other agencies within the region, and in the city's kind of city of Springfield's kind of right in the middle, just below the average. One thing that drives it is every city has their own drivers, but they do have regulatory requirements.
The blue represents the regional MWMC fees and the green is Eugene and Springfield. And it comes up every year, at least at some level. Springfield's local rate, why is it so much more than Eugene's? And that's in part because we had to take on additional debt requirements with the wet weather flow management plan requirements that happened 15 years back or so.
Moving on to stormwater. And so before we get into the rate comparison in the recommended rates for stormwater and wastewater, just like to highlight, very similar to the wastewater system on what drives our rates. It's that regulatory requirements that expand with the updated MS4 permit, which we anticipate the end of this fiscal year with implementation next fiscal year. And so that's going to require additional program investment over time. Second, the system maintenance needs, again, same thing, aging assets. We also have the addition where we have a lot more green infrastructure, so swales, ponds, that sort of thing for clean water. One thing I think some folks think is we build those and we just kind of plant them and forget them, but they do take routine maintenance to maintain and keep functioning to clean that water. And third, if you'll, in the materials, you'll note that there is the proposed realignment of the street sweeping services program. So that program is currently funded 50-50 between street fund and stormwater fund. And the portion in the street fund is approximately $300,000. Given the fund pressures and the declining revenues or flat revenues in the street fund, it's been recommended as part of the FY27 budget to move that whole program into the stormwater fund. And so that is having an effect on the rates when we're adding $300,000 to the stormwater fund. Similar to the wastewater, this is the rate comparison and where how we compare to other agencies within the region. As you can see, we're we're just above the average for the FY26 adopted rate.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but if you look back at past years, Springfield was much further to the left on that graph. And although we've had rate adjustments each year, ours have been lower than other communities, and we've actually shifted to the right. When you're bounded by two rivers like we are and have the mandates we have from the state, it costs a lot to provide these stormwater services.
And then, so what you see here is this similar to the material you have in your packet. So the recommended rate adjustment for FY27 budget is 5% in the local wastewater services and 5% in the local stormwater services. And the total impact is about $2 or is $2.31 on the average residential bill.
In addition to the local rates, we wanted to just brief the council on what the MWC board did at the April 10th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. They took action to direct staff to move forward with a 5.5% adjustment on the regional side based on a number of factors. You'll see here on the table that where the proposed rate is at. It represents about $1.84 adjustment to the typical residential household. Council will be able to discuss that further and we'll hold the public hearing on May 18th to determine whether to implement that in Springfield. And with that, we're ready for any questions and conversation that the council might have.
Questions, Councilor Buck?
Just clarification on the rate that's being proposed. So when we look at the regional and the other, so both would be assessed to household. So it wouldn't be just the $2.31. It would be the $1.84 and the $2.31. Correct. So it's not combined.
Yeah.
And then I guess the second question that I have is one of the things that I don't want to find ourselves down the road is, hey, we're leaving ourselves short, kind of, creating a deficit for ourselves or a hole that we're digging for ourselves. So when I think about these rates, I guess the question that comes up for me is, given the aging structure, given all of those things, are we setting ourselves up for kind of a cliff down the road where it's like, okay, now we have a major expense, and how are we going to deal with that?
Well, I'll address those in parts. So first, on the wastewater system, I feel very comfortable saying, as part of the master plan and that strategic financial plan, we've kind of taken all of those factors, looking at inflation, looking at our infrastructure, and future needs and the rates in that strategic financial plan. While if for the counselors who were here, when we put everything in there and said, what would it take to build the whole wastewater master plan in 20 years, as that plan said, it was like 10 years of a 11% rate. And I think when we discussed that here, it was like, that's probably not reasonable. So we looked at how we space out some of those expansion projects, thinking that some of that cost is going to be recouped through developers. And we kind of we settled on a rate that was above what we figured annual inflation would be, but below that 11% to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success in the future. So I feel comfortable saying on the wastewater system, by sticking to that plan, we have a plan to address aging infrastructure. We have reserves to address any emergency thing. In the stormwater, one reason you're seeing a 5% this year over what was projected last year to 3% is we haven't done that fine tuning or gone through and done that detailed dive into the stormwater system and the stormwater finances. And so we're in the midst of that. Our goal is to have that strategic financial plan ready to bring to the council and use for starting in the FY28 budget planning. However, you'll see by adding that additional 300,000, that's pretty much equivalent to what we anticipated with the rate recommendation last year and adopted rate of the additional revenue being. So with that, with still some unknowns, I wasn't comfortable with just going with a 3% and recommended 5%. And then next year we'll have a firm strategic financial plan that we can bring to the council and show us the roadmap for the next, 10, 15, 20 years.
Councilor Wadley.
you. And I don't really have questions. I'm just gonna have some messy statements. And I know that we're not voting on this tonight, so we have some time to talk about it. I feel a little bit differently in that when I look at a 5% rate increase this year, next year, next year, next year, that is not insubstantial for the average person. And I think of how people are being impacted by inflation and expenses. And I think about the fact what you said is that, this is all paid for by user fees, which is, that puts the onus, that puts the burden on just everyday folks. So I'm not, it's going to take some work to get me there because I just 5% this year, next year, next year, next year. I just don't think that it's the time to do that. And I completely understand. And as someone who was up in Salem advocating for the transportation package last year, which would have helped to mitigate some of these things, and the fact that folks are so, everyday people are so against paying the taxes to do this, to just then shift it over onto a fee. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just saying that I am not there as to where I want to increase it by 5%. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions that I had is what I keep hearing is the bidding environment substantially better than it has been, because the construction's effectively down. So when I think about this question about 5%, have we incorporated more favorable bidding conditions to build projects?
In the wastewater system, we are starting to program that. So while we have projected 5%, I can honestly say it could get better, right? If we show that our reserves are building faster than we thought. Right now, we don't have quite enough data for that. And in looking ahead at some of the large projects we have and potentially speeding those up. But yes, we are taking that into account. On the stormwater system, we're not there with our kind of big deep dive into the stormwater system financially. And so we're not quite there to make any of those sorts of predictions.
I think responding to some of the comments, one of the concerns that we've had and we've attempted to communicate to the state and federal government is that, for example, with MWMC system, 75% of that regional plant was funded federally back in the 80s. That money is gone, and it's all on the backs of the ratepayers now. And with the current administration, they're even looking at cutting more programs like WIFIA and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And so we are continually lobbying and working towards pushing Congress and the state legislators to make keep that funding whole, because that's going to be helping us in the future. Right now, we're looking at maybe 2 to 3% nationally to fund these systems, where it used to be a much higher proportion. It may be something when we come to you in executive session and talk about the stormwater permit and the unfunded mandates. It may be a further way to communicate some of that information. So it's something that's definitely on our minds and is not easily solved, but I appreciate you raising it.
Councilor Weber.
I appreciate Councilor Rodley's concerns. Rates are going up on everything everywhere, right? It just seems to be like there's nothing that's not going up right now. I think long-term projection would be helpful, understanding that things can always change up or down, make things better, make things worse. It is hard to continue to raise costs on our residents, but at the same time, it's a reality that we're facing. Where does the money come from? If there are creative solutions out there, I'm all for looking at those, but it is a reality that we're facing.
Councilor Stout.
Thank you. I've already, in the MWMC meeting, certainly raised my own concerns about the rate increases, though ultimately it was through a lot of discussions that we had to have and just to make a painful choice on behalf of the ratepayers. So I am supportive of the rate increase, but just barely. Something that's important to me is when we're talking about asset value of systems like we have, to understand also the liabilities that we have. When we build a road has a useful life of maybe 10 years, maybe 30 years. And so now we've built ourselves a liability. We have to either destroy the road, vacate the right of way on that, or we have to rebuild that road. And so we have a clear liability sense on there. When we're presenting a system with an assets of $500 million, that's all well and good. And we can maybe even borrow against that, which I find to be incalculably foolish on a financial level, looking if I am a small city. On a separate level, I'm really interested in the liabilities that we're facing. To say we have to replace, $100 million worth of pipe within the next 10 years and looking at that financial projection. I think that's an important piece of data as we're digesting all of this to say, do we choose to let these pipelines crumble, or do we choose to restore them and pay for them? So I know it's a bit of a philosophical 30,000-foot question, but I think it's just something I want to bring to this discussion when we have it next year. Thank you.
Councilor Buck.
I appreciate all the comments that were made, and I guess I just want to clarify, if we're going to go down the road of some rate increases, and we certainly may have to, I just want to make sure that we don't do that and get down the road and realize, we now have a cliff we have to jump off of financially. I think that being realistic about what our financial liabilities are, as Councilor Stout mentioned, and how we get there is what I'm most interested in. So if the financial reality is we need rate increases, that's great. I just want it to come with a strategy so that we don't run into a cliff, because we've in other areas we're having to deal with that, and that's my position. So I'm supportive, but want to make sure we're doing it responsibly.
Thank you. Could you clarify for us just this kind of critical point? The rate increases are to meet our regulatory requirements, our federal regulatory requirements for both stormwater and wastewater, right?
Correct. I mean, I think, yes. And to Councilor Buck's point, I mean, and Councilor Stout's point, we're on a replacement schedule for our wastewater system of like 500 years. We know the systems aren't going to last that long, but replacing, it's very costly to replace these systems. And so with the continuing mandates coming down from the state, that's eating into our capacity to do replacement. And the DEQ's position essentially is we have the ability to control rates. And so it really is not an unfunded mandate. But
I don't know that we have that same position, but okay. But I appreciate you sharing that, Nancy, and then we'll come up to Councilor Mo.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask staff to circle back to a point that they went over briefly, but I think is salient in this discussion, which is INI, which stands for inflow and infiltration. For those that may be listening or that aren't familiar with that concept, could you briefly describe INI and why that's important and how that factors into rate structure?
I can take a crack at that. Sure. So infiltration and inflow, when you have miles and miles of pipe of varying age, essentially those pipes, as they age, develop cracks. We are fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, to live in an area with a climate that we do. It rains a lot. The groundwater is high. As the groundwater table comes up, pressure builds, water comes into those pipes, and it's then being conveyed to the region. It has to be conveyed, pumped, and treated at the regional plant. So we do abatement of that in the local systems to try to slip line and do other means to limit intrusion of water into the pipes. Our base flows at the plant are around 20 million gallons a day, and from Eugene and Springfield in the summer. And then when it rains hard in the winter, we see upwards of 230 million gallons a day. So a big peaking factor, a 10-to-1 peaking factor. That costs money to convey, treat, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of one of the issues that we're facing and why it's important to be replacing and/or maintaining the systems.
That's wrong.
Turn my microphone. I'm going to turn my microphone on. Very short sentence. It's key to everything. It's unfunded mandates. It's just killing us. And I don't know what to do about it. But that's one of the big problems we have.
All right. I think you're hearing us just continue to be concerned about the expense that we continue to pass on to our citizens. And it's not the work that you folks are doing. It's the cumulative work over a lot of different requirements because this is all the same set of folks that we're talking about. I keep coming back to the single most important thing that we're looking for in the long term, right? Is just stability around the rates. And probably 10 years ago, you started bringing us like a 5-year forecast. You've done that successfully for a long time to show us that question that Councillor Buck brought up, which is we don't want to create cliffs for ourselves. 0%, 0%, 9% is a terrible plan. Now we're in this sort of high inflation environment, high regulatory environment, and you're showing us kind of what's coming down at us. And I think the challenge that we're giving you is we appreciate the stability, but it would be nice to look for ways to, work that number at least down to the rate of inflation, if not just a little bit below it. That's not going to clearly happen this year. We got too much stuff going on. But as we start thinking about what our future years are, just continuing to look at those out years and looking for stability in places where we can find ways to slow down the rate of increases would be meaningful. Does anybody have anything else? Nancy.
Sorry, just to clarify, the I&I issue is important because it's something that you don't really see. It's part of our infrastructure, and as that ages, the problem gets worse. So it becomes more expensive when we aren't replacing those pipes. And unfunded mandates are what they are, but it doesn't take away from the deferred maintenance that we still have to do with the pipes underneath us that we all just kind of assume are going to work all the time because that's what we kind of hope happens. So just putting that to your attention.
And correct me if I, didn't win my engineering merit badge today, but there's a significant amount of the system that is on the private side that is probably not being repaired as quickly as possible too, right? It's not just the public system; it is the one that sits on our residences that is creating this I&I issue.
It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a fairly substantial portion in the public system, but it tends to, if you correct the public system, the water tends to migrate upwards, not always. And you still have some issues to deal with, but we're seeing when we were investing more heavily in I&I abatement, we were seeing flows at the plant on an annual basis and on a winter basis maintain. We weren't seeing higher peaks. We've noticed in the last 3 to 4 years, we've been seeing higher peaks. So on the regional, when I put my regional hat on, I'm concerned about, we spent $100 million in 2006 to expand our capacity. And that was on the backs of the ratepayers, and we don't want to be faced with that situation again.
Yeah, and one thing we are starting to do that for people who are interested in those engineering problems and data, we're starting to collect, well, we have been collecting flow information before we do a project in a basin, and we're starting to collect flow data after we complete a project to kind of see what impact the project had when we kind of tighten those pipes up, and then to see kind of what that impact may be from the residential lines, at least to have that data to see how effective the solutions we're coming up with are.
All right. Thank you. Is there any more questions? All right. I think we're ready for you to bring it forward to a public hearing and get it scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was our last item. I'm going to adjourn the work session. We're going to reconvene at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting. Everybody, there's still a couple of seats up front if you're looking for a seat, and I can see some gaps around the edges if you're looking for some place to sit down. And I appreciate everybody coming out today. I'm going to call the regular session of the Springfield City Council to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilor Weber.
Here.
Councilor Moe.
Here.
Councilor Radley.
Here.
Councilor Buck.
Here.
Councilor Stout.
Here, thank you.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. There are 2 times designated for public testimony this evening under public hearings and business from the audience. If you're attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the front of the council chambers and turn them into the city recorder. If you're joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak at either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows: anyone in person in the council chambers, and then anyone who has raised their virtual hand. First item, please.
Mayor, you have 4 proclamations this evening. The first item is May is Bike Month proclamation, and this is your item.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's patience with this. I've got 4 items, and I will read them very quickly. As we go into April and May, it's a very busy recognition moment. So we're going to have folks in here take a picture, and then we'll get on to the public testimony. The first one is the May is Bike Month. Whereas the bicycle is an economic, healthy, and convenient form of transportation and an excellent tool for enjoyment of Springfield's scenic beauty. And whereas through the month of May, Springfield residents can experience the joy of biking and support the local economy by biking to nearby shopping and dining. And whereas the city of Springfield and Safe Routes to Schools are promoting a greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety improvement, safety to improve health and safety for everyone on our streets, I, Sean Van Gordon, Mayor of Springfield, proclaim May 2026 as Bike Month in Springfield, and I challenge Springfield residents to get out and ride on our regional paths to visit a local business by bike during the month of May. So. Yay, Mike. I think we're doing public works here in a minute. All right, the next one is National Public Works Week. And this year the motto is rooted in service, empowered by the community. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital to sustainable and resilient communities, as well as public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the city of Springfield. Whereas these infrastructure, facilities, services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector responsible for building and improving and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment systems, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures. Whereas the 2026 marks the 66th annual Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Therefore, I, Sean Van Gordon, designate May 17th through 23rd, 2026 as National Public Works Week. The Public Works folks going down here. Just check. We didn't tell you we're going to put them. Good job. Do we have the building safety folks here too? Okay. Oh, it's packed. I just wanted to make sure you were here. All right. So the next one is the Building Safety Month proclamation. And whereas the city of Springfield is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential roles of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. Whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry. Whereas modern building codes include safeguards to protect the buildings from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of the public safety, our local code officials. Whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment. I, Sean Van Gordon, Mayor of Springfield, proclaim May 2026 as Building Safety Month, and I encourage our community members to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. It's one, I promise. This is the National Library Week 2026 proclamation, which is April 19th through 25th, 2026. Whereas libraries spark creativity, fuel imagination, and inspire lifelong learning, offering a space where individuals of all ages can find joy through exploration and discovery. And whereas libraries serve as vibrant community hubs, connecting people with knowledge, technology, resources while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and cultural enrichment. Whereas the libraries provide equitable tools such as access to books, digital tools, innovative programming to ensure that all individuals, regardless of their background, have the support they need to learn and thrive. Whereas libraries partner with schools, businesses, and organizations to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand access to essential services, strengthening our community. Whereas libraries nurture young minds through story times, STEM programs, literacy initiatives, fostering creativity and the love of learning that lasts a lifetime. Whereas libraries protect the right to read, think, explore without censorship, standing as champions of intellectual freedom and free expression. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers across the country are joined together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme Find Your Joy. I, Sean Van Gordon, Mayor of Springfield, proclaim the 19th through the 25th as National Library Week. During this week, I encourage all residents to visit their library, explore its resources, and celebrate the ways that libraries help our communities. Come on, Robin. Gotta wait for Robin.
That's the library advisory board, Ron. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second,
Could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo,
Yes.
Counselor Rodley,
yes.
Counselor Buck,
Yes.
and Counselor Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes 5 yeses, 0 nos. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearings. You have one public hearing this evening. That's the payroll tax ordinance. This is a first reading and no action is required. Nathan Bell is here for this item.
All right, before we begin this evening, I'd like to take a moment to outline the protocol and expectations for public hearings. First, I want to thank everyone for being here and taking the time to participate. Public input is an essential part of our decision-making process, and we value the opportunity to hear from our community. We have one public hearing this evening, payroll tax ordinance first reading. Tonight's public comment period is specifically dedicated to that topic. In this public hearing, I ask that all remarks stay focused on that item before the council to help us maintain a clear and productive record that ensures everyone's time is respected. If you wish to speak and have not yet signed up, please complete a request to speak card and hand it to the city recorder. Speakers will be called in the order in which they've signed up. Once your name is called, please come forward to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then begin your remarks. If you're online, you will need to raise your virtual hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the council. We ask that speakers and audience members maintain a respectful conduct through the public hearing portion of this evening. That means no interruptions, applause, verbal reactions, positive or negative, while others are speaking. This ensures that there's a fair and safe space for every participant. Offensive language or disruptive behavior is not tolerated or permitted. With those guidelines in place, we look forward to hearing from each of you. And we're going to turn it over for the staff report first.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nathan Bell, Finance Director. The item in front of you this evening is a request to conduct a public hearing and a first reading for a payroll tax ordinance. Before I turn it back to you, I think there's some items worth noting. The payroll tax ordinance in your packet this evening closely aligns with the recommendation that was made by the Fiscal Stability Task Force. That was for the lowest possible rate that would generate approximately $2.3 million. The rate in this proposed ordinance is 0.1% or 0.1% paid by both the employer and the employees. It would generate approximately $2.45 million in the first year of the program, so close to that target goal. The task force also wanted it to be simple to understand and administer. I think we were successful in that. Limited exclusions, that was a little more challenging. It does include some exclusions. Primarily, it excludes health insurance premiums as well as flexible spending account contributions. But they won't have a significant impact on the revenue generated from the program. And then lastly, strong guardrails. This payroll tax ordinance includes guardrails with a rate that's established by a council adopted ordinance, which means it can only be changed by another council adopted ordinance. No rate increases for a minimum of 3 years. Annual reporting to both the public and the council. Revenues accounted for in a separate fund, so this is going to allow for greater transparency and formal review after 3 years for the efficacy of the program. I think one other thing I want to note on this is, and it was talked about in the Fiscal Stability Task Force, but we haven't talked about it a lot since. One of the considerations of the Fiscal Stability Task Force was for the city to expand its revenue sources. Right now, as it relates to public safety, we've sort of put all our eggs in one basket, which is the property tax basket with our permanent rate in the general fund, as well as 2 levies, and all of it under the constraints of Measure 5 and 50. This payroll tax actually diversifies our revenue sources. And I think what also is nice with it is that it expands the group that contributes towards paying for our public safety services. And just to illustrate that, for the employee portion of this tax, for Springfield workers or Springfield employees, only 25% of them live in the city of Springfield. That means 75% of those folks come from outside city limits. That means they benefit from the public safety services, but they aren't contributing towards those services. This gives us a mechanism where those folks can contribute to services that they benefit from. So with that, any questions for me?
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, could you clarify one point for us too? If you're a Springfield resident that works in Eugene, would you have to pay both taxes?
No.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be subject to it because you're not working within Springfield city limits.
Okay, great. Before I open the public hearing, I want to just chat about, and maybe Mary Bridget, you can help me here. This public hearing is specifically about the rate. I know I've got some library cards that have addressed concerns around payroll rates. So I think if you want to be heard specifically to the payroll rate, now is going to be the place that you want to come forward and speak. Do you have any more advice for us?
Yeah, I think you can just go through the cards that you have that are specific to the payroll tax, and at the end of that testimony, just query the audience if there are people who would like to speak to the payroll tax instead of general business from the audience.
Perfect. Thanks for the help on that one. Thank you, Nate. I'm going to call folks up 2 at a time. Since we're going to use both microphones, you're going to state your name for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes. I'm going to open the public hearing. My first 2 cards are Stephen Schmuck and Libby Smith.
All right. Mayor, councilors, thank you for your personal time you invest in Springfield. I'm here because many residents and employers are concerned that the task force's recommendations of a new payroll tax moves Springfield in the wrong direction at a moment when our economic foundation is already fragile. Over the past decade, Springfield has faced steady increases in state-driven administrative mandates. Their planning requirements, climate rules, equity mapping obligations, and land use code changes. These are not locally chosen priorities per se. They originate from state agencies pursuing broad progressive policy agendas and require specialized consultants. The Fiscal Stability Task Force report itself acknowledges this growing reliance on consultants, and the state provides little reimbursement for these mandates. At the same time, Springfield continues to carry rising personnel costs, especially accelerating pension obligations. A payroll tax does not address these structural drivers. It simply shifts the burden onto employers and workers who are already under pressure. The city has discretionary spending in areas such as the library and the museum. These are valued institutions, but they are also among the few areas where the Springfield has real flexibility. Before asking residents and employers to pay more, the city should evaluate these programs and let voters decide whether something like a library levy has support. Layered on top of all this, there are broader statewide economic climate. Businesses are facing rising regulatory requirements, compliance burdens, and labor costs. Many employers feel that the policy environment is becoming increasingly difficult for commerce and job creation. And we are seeing that job creators and working families are leaving Oregon, and adding to a local payroll task risks accelerating that trend. A tax on wages sends the wrong signal at a time when Springfield needs to retain and attract jobs. For these reasons, I urge the council to reject the payroll tax recommendation. Springfield taxpayers don't need another tax on employers and families struggling in the Oregon economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Could you hit the button and it'll go green? Thank you.
Here we go. Good evening, Libby Smith. Thank you for your time, Mayor and councilors and all of you city staff to be here this evening. My name is Libby Smith. My husband and I own a business in Springfield. He can't be here tonight because he's coaching our son's baseball team. We already wrote a letter to the mayor, councilors, and city manager, mainly about the negative impacts that proposed city payroll tax would have on our business. But I also want to come and speak about the personal impacts of the proposed payroll tax. My husband and I are raising 3 young children, and I can say personally that every dollar counts, especially to those of us trying to raise children or who have dependents. Most schools have had to drastically cut back enrichment programs and school-sponsored sports, which has impacted our kids. These dollars that you're considering taking from us are the ones that allow us to pay for music lessons, dance classes, or to put our kids in sports programs, or send them to summer camp, or for someone to help pay for their dependent care. It costs hundreds of even thousands of dollars a year, in some cases, to participate in these activities or to pay for dependent care. Think about the single parents where every single dollar counts and they may or may not receive any other support or assistance. They may have to choose between necessities or extracurriculars. Every single person and family is struggling to pay for rising housing costs, which in general have become unaffordable. Astronomical grocery bills and utilities, expensive gas and skyrocketing healthcare costs, unaffordable daycare and dependent costs, to name a few. This will hurt us all. Any extra money you take can be the difference in someone affording to remain independent or needing assistance. Your vote to pass this tax could be making people choose between healthcare or simply paying their bills. Our employees have already been hit with the PFMLA tax in the last several years, and that has hurt us as well. We have yet to even have an employee use that program, but we all pay for it. So do my husband and I. A new tax will absolutely make our business less viable and less attractive to potential employees. We even risk losing employees if this passes. We have already had to reduce staff and cut back hours based on some current economic challenges. This will only increase our burden. We need you to take a deeper look inside before you go outside seeking more tax dollars from citizens. Look at the library fund, look at parks and rec and city maintenance operations, look at your own city staff and see where you can make necessary cuts. Focus on efficiency. The public library is not a necessity. Schools have libraries and the majority of people are more concerned with access to internet than access to the public library. Reduce operational hours if necessary. Consider making the library or Willamette Lane a predominantly volunteer program wherever possible, and where you could offer free memberships or discounted books to those who volunteer. Citywide extracurriculars are not necessities. Being able to afford a roof over your head and healthy food and medical bills are necessities, and these will be negatively affected by this proposed tax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next two cards I have are Paige Walters and Kai Fireside.
Mayor Van Gordon and members of the Springfield City Council. For the record, my name is Paige Walters. I serve as the Senior Director of Advocacy and Economic Development for the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Chamber, I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on the city's proposed payroll tax. The Chamber does support the ordinance as it's drafted. In December, we outlined key principles to guide any payroll tax proposal: simplicity, predictability, transparency, and clear guardrails for accountability. The ordinance before you reflects a meaningful alignment with those principles, including the shared rate structure, a dedicated fund, a defined period maintaining the initial rate, and a commitment to public reporting and review. We also appreciate the City Council and staff's engagement with the business community and the incorporation of that feedback into the proposal before you. Our support, however, is grounded in one key condition. It must be paired with a sustained focus on long-term economic growth. A payroll tax can help address immediate fiscal needs, but it's not a long-term solution. A city that can fund essential services is critical, but the level at which we set this tax will directly shape our economic competitiveness. That's why maintaining a measured approach, including the current rate, matters. Long-term fiscal stability will depend on expanding Springfield's economic base, supporting business investment, facilitating job creation, and ensuring the city remains competitive in attracting and retaining employers. A strong and growing economy increases revenue and reduces reliance on additional tax mechanisms over time. At the same time, businesses in Springfield are already navigating a layered and growing cost environment. You've just heard from a couple of them tonight. Within that context, even modest cost increases matter, particularly for small businesses operating on narrow margins. Any new tax should be implemented carefully to avoid unintended consequences like reduced investment or slower job growth. We've also heard concern about the potential for future rate increases. The ordinance's 3-year guardrail provides important stability, and maintaining that commitment will be critical to building trust. As you move into upcoming budget discussions, we encourage a continued focus on cost containment, clear prioritization of core services, and long-term strategies that strengthen the city's economic base. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Kai Fireside. I know some people here are advocating for this tax to not exist at all, but it is absolutely necessary that we utilize this revenue stream to keep our city running. Furthermore, 0.1% is simply not sufficient. It dwarfs when compared to Eugene or other similarly sized cities. Some people have asked for a 0.01 percentage point increase, and I just wanted to run through some math so that we understand how small that is for any individual contributing, but how big an impact it would have on the city. So 1% is 1 penny per dollar. It's 1 out of 100. 0.1% is 1 penny per $10. That is 1 out of 1,000 pennies. And 0.01% would be 1 penny out of every 10,000 pennies. We're asking for 1/10,000th of the thing. And we're asking that you contribute that money to the library, which is an absolutely vital service that has already lost its teen program. It is apparently Library Appreciation Week, but we're looking at a library that's only going to be open 5 days. So next year, Library Appreciation Week will be a 5-day thing and not a 6 or 7 day thing. In the past 10 years, more businesses have opened than closed in the state of Oregon. We are not unfriendly towards business. We need this income. And the 3-year stagnation is absolutely ridiculous. The economy is so unpredictable. You cannot tie your hands for the next 3 years that way. I think that's ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy English Drew.
Thank you, Mayor Van Gordon and councilors and city staff. I wasn't going to testify tonight, but then I was encouraged to. My name is Tammy Inglis Drew. I represent Ames Mobile Nursing. I am a small business owner that we founded 9 years ago in Springfield. Costs are rising. Everyone knows that. We've talked about it tonight. But I trust that the mayor and the task force have put great thought and analysis into this payroll tax proposal. And I'm trusting that with the guidelines that have been set forth. I'm just here to tell you I do support a payroll tax. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my last card. Neil, do we have anybody online wishing to testify?
We have one hand. It's Beth Halverson. Beth's hand has been up since the beginning of the meeting, so we'll just check to make sure this is the item you would like to speak to, and you should be able to unmute your microphone, Beth.
Hello. Yes, I am here. I don't know if you can also see me or if I can show my video or not, but if it's just the audio, that's great.
We can hear you. Do you want to speak to the payroll tax?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Then go right ahead. State your name and location in the city for the record.
Absolutely. I am Beth Halverson. I live on 5th and East Street. I can't remember if that's Ward 2. My apologies. I just wanted to thank you all for giving context for tonight about the payroll tax. I want to thank all the comments as well. And I'm very keenly aware that we have some very difficult costs to cover and very, very tight budgets. And I'm fully in support of the payroll tax. I know that I'm speaking from a place of privilege because I know every dollar counts with every one of my good friends and with a lot of the clients that I work with in mental health. And I am fully respecting that. I definitely see that. And I also think that similar to some of the other comments, we need way more than the 0.1%. I would love to do the 0.2%. And I would love to consider, if it's an opportunity, to look at having income levels where we have different amounts of payroll tax depending on how much income someone has coming in, because I absolutely believe that higher earning people should be able to shoulder more of that expense than some of the younger families or some of the people that don't have the same privilege afforded to them. I am fully in support of making sure that we have all of the funding that we need, not just because I love the library and I think that it's an incredible, important service, but also because I am aware, as you all mentioned in the first portion of our evening meeting tonight, there are so many expenses. We have so many huge problems. And that is assuming that we don't have a natural disaster coming and hitting Springfield this summer or this next winter. The amount of expense that is going to continue to come just means that we have to have the funding to do it. I don't want to pretend to know what it's like to be in y'all's shoes. And I know that there's this recognition that Springfield doesn't want to do this. I get it. They don't. But we need leadership that is going to help explain why they need to. why we need to, as a community, make sure that we can pay to keep everything running, why we as a community need to do these hard, challenging tasks, and really help sell it to them so they understand. Because when you provide context like you did at the beginning of the evening tonight, that allows us to know the why. And I think Springfieldians would absolutely understand the why if you guys would spend some of the energy helping them understand why. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more hands?
No other hands for this item.
Okay, before I close the public hearing, I recognize there's a lot of folks here for the library, but is there anybody else that wants to speak specifically to the payroll tax? Okay, so we're going to bring both of you up at the same time. Come on up. You're going to state your name for the record. When you are done, Allison is going to need another card from you. So we're going to do the paperwork in reverse order, but you guys are pros.
Thank you. My name is Mary Harwood, and I did come here to speak initially about the library, but also about the payroll tax. So I've just adjusted my comments a little bit. I do support the premise of a payroll tax. Many of my coworkers live in other cities and work here in Springfield. I'm a teacher for Springfield Public Schools. Sharing the tax burden with people who earn their living in this lovely city makes sense to me. My concern is that the proposed tax isn't going to benefit the community enough to make this a wise move. Why have a tax increase that does not cover the expenses that the city actually needs to maintain services? Adding a payroll tax while reducing library services, for instance, is in effect providing this community with less benefit for more cost. That math doesn't work. Consider establishing a rate that will allow you to maintain essential public services like the library. Pivoting to a payroll tax that continues services has the potential to convert those, like many of us here tonight, opposed to library cuts into advocates for the proposed tax. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nick Aguayo, and I just wanted to say that you've heard public testimony tonight about taking dollars away from families to pay for extracurricular activities to go to things like private music lessons. What they've proposed to you is to cut programs that are for all members of the community, including the library, which provides extracurricular activities. Their concern for private extracurricular activities in summer camp shouldn't take away money from services for all people who can't even afford summer camp in the first place. The city is stronger when we pool our resources together to provide services for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is the last set of cards. If you could fill out one more card. Oh. I think you were in the business from the audience. Did you want to speak about the payroll tax? If you want us to consider your input for the payroll tax, why don't you come up and no. Okay, come on. We were expecting this. These topics are really closely aligned. So same plan is you'll read your name and location for the record, and then you'll fill out an extra card for Allison. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your flexibility and for helping us out. My name is Kristen Curie, and my opinions are mine, not of my employer, which is the City of Springfield. I've worked for libraries for nearly 20 years in various communities and in different roles, but I came to Springfield almost 14 years ago and I made my home here. I bought a house, gave birth to 3 beautiful children. I volunteer with my church, the PTO, Scouts, neighborhood groups. Like all of you here tonight, I'm invested in the Springfield community. And it's National Library Week. Librarians will tell you that we wear a lot of hats. We excel at being creative, adaptive, responsive in the services provided to communities, usually with small budgets. What sets SPL apart is just how small. In FY24, we had 1/3 less funding per capita than the median in Oregon. Our staffing was less than half the average. And yet, you've heard from our community over the past few months about the quality of services we provide. Any day, 51 people walk into the library each hour, which is above the state average. Our expanded study rooms are almost always booked. Computers and print are busy. Teen leadership workshops are full. And FY25, despite being closed 1 month for renovations, 15,132 people attended our programs. People come downtown, they come to the library, and they spend money here. Despite being staffed at 44% of the median for Oregon, in 2 years, the library has had a 21% cut in staffing levels. We now have 1 person for every 3 staff at the average Oregon Public Library. You can't run our library this way. This level of cut will drastically reduce the level of service and quality of life for Springfielders, reducing the number of people who come downtown, who feel welcome, who want to live here. We're responsible fiscally, we make tough decisions, but our approach for too long has been making cuts. We're the little city that could, and we're proud of that. We know how to be frugal. We can talk about how frugal we are, but we can't just run an organization, a business, a scout troop on cuts alone. You must increase revenue. Even my daughter, who sold 1,500 boxes of Girl Scout cookies this year, knows that. And yes, Thin Mints taste better in your mouth than taxes, right? But funding a troop and funding local government both require setting the revenue goal at a level that will cover costs, and then to gain support, talking to community members. The mayor's Fiscal Stability Task Force did the initial work of setting great goals and gaining supports. But as a community member, I'm concerned that the proposal you're voting on is not setting us up for stability. The task force suggested a 0.1 to a 0.2% payroll tax, yet you're voting on the lowest number in that range, with projections showing a city budget shortfall as soon as the 3rd year of implementation. For a city that's been as frugal as possible, this can't be the answer. I understand there's a lot of complicated pieces. Let's stop relying on making cuts as stopgap measures. I implore you to set the city revenue goals at healthy levels. Let's invest in a welcoming community and a vibrant future for Springfield. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Harwood. I live in Ward 3 and my address is on file. I work at the Springfield Public Library, but I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of myself only. I urge the council to implement a payroll tax at a sustainable rate. The proposed rate of 0.1% is insufficient to fill the budget gap. It doesn't include much needed deferred maintenance for city buildings. And it means cutting 2 library staff and closing the library's doors an extra day every week. This comes after the library had to reduce open hours last year due to staffing. Springfield residents working in Eugene already pay Eugene's payroll tax, which is more than 4 times Springfield's proposed rate. A modest increase to the proposed payroll tax could maintain city staffing and keep the library open 6 days a week without burdening taxpayers like myself. Funding the payroll tax at an amount that will sustain city operations is the fiscally responsible and equitable solution. A small targeted increase to the payroll tax of just 0.01 or 0.02% will allow the library to continue to thrive as a space for everyone. The proposed cuts to the library will reduce our ability to provide community resources and excellent services to our patrons. We won't be able to spend as much time helping each person. We won't have teen programs. The librarian who was laid off under the proposed cuts had her last day last week. We are now absorbing her job duties in addition to our regular work, just like we did for the position cut in 2024 and again last year for the vacant position due to be cut this July. We rely on dedicated volunteers to keep the library running, the equivalent of 2.7 full-time staff. When I started working at the library 3 years ago, we were already staffed well below the statewide average by population, and there were 14 full-time library staff. Today, we're down to 11. If a couple people call in sick, we struggle to operate the library. We can't sustain the level of service we had just 2 years ago. What will happen the next time the budget needs trimming? Thank you all for devoting your time and your energy to make Springfield a better place. Let's work together for a pragmatic solution that looks to the next 10 years, not just the next 3. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my last card. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And this is the first reading. There's no action. Mary Bridget, do we need to do anything else? Or if anybody's got questions about like detailed questions, now would be a good time for them? Or should we just wait to deliberate until it's scheduled for the second hearing?
You could wait to ask your questions for the second hearing would be fine. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Next item, please.
Mayor, the next item is business from the audience.
Okay. I've got instructions for this too. Before we get started, we have 20 minutes for this item. I have 24 cards. So if the council's good, I would say maybe we check in at 45 minutes. and see where we're going. We do have an item that other people are here for this evening. Okay. We had to get the paperwork done. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to take a moment to outline the protocol expectations for business from the audience. First, I want to thank everyone for being here and taking the time to participate. Public input is an essential part of our decision-making process, and we value the opportunity to hear from our community. If you wish to speak and have not signed up, please complete the request to speak card and hand it to the city recorder. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up. Once your name is called, please come forward to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then begin your remarks. If you're online, you will have to raise your virtual hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the council. We ask that all speakers and audience members maintain respectful conduct to the business from the audience. This means no interruptions, no applause, no verbal reactions, positive or negative, while others are speaking. This ensures a safe and fair space for everybody. Offensive language or disruptive behavior will not be permitted. With those guidelines in place, we look forward to hearing from each of you. I'm going to call you 2 cards at a time, and then we'll go back and forth between the 2 of you. The first 2 people are James Longnier and Jim Couples.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm here because I submitted a letter to the agenda on behalf of why I think Callie Ackland is the right choice for the Ward 4 appointment. But instead of reading that letter verbatim, I'd rather just talk to you for a couple of minutes on the reasoning behind that. So when you're looking at qualifications, I truly believe that Callie stands out. She's put in the time on the Planning Commission, which means she understands the work that's going to become before this body. She knows the decisions and the responsibilities that come along with that role. Not every applicant can say this. Some people, the first time that they've stepped in this room has been regarding this appointment to this body, and I think that's important. But I also think that this appointment is more than qualifications. It's about who gets to sit at this table up here and who gets to make decisions. Because the reality is that most of the people who end up in positions on city council, they tend to come from the same pathways. They have the financial flexibility to participate, and they're well connected with professional groups like the Chamber of Commerce or social groups like Rotary. And those are both great groups. They help our community. But I also want to remind you that that's not the deciding qualification for a city councilor. If you're choosing on the basis of who you're friends with or who you're in those groups with, it lessens the office and credibility. And if you do the opposite and choose the best qualified person, it does the opposite, and it builds credibility towards your office. When the same well-connected and financially insulated candidates are chosen again and again, you have a council that doesn't reflect the community that it serves. Right now, about 45% of Springfielders rent instead of own their own homes. It's 45%. There isn't a single renter here on the council. That's a huge gap in perspective, especially when housing is consistently said as a major issue. You don't have that lived experience that's making decisions on the city council. And I believe you're all trying to do your best, but I also think there's something that comes from life experience and living it and being there in the now that's important. Anyway, I just want to say there's one other thing that I think is important, and that's Callie's a veteran like me, and we talk a lot about supporting veterans, but this is a chance to actually back that up with action. So I want to just restate, I think Callie Ackland is the appointee with a different experience and perspective, and one that is strongly missed, not only on this council, but on more public bodies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Jim Longer, Ward 6.
I have hired, trained, and worked with many dozens of young women and men over the past 50 years as business executive, business owner, and as leader of over 20 community-based nonprofit boards and commissions. A lot of good talent came and went, but I'd be hard pressed to remember any with the expertise, wisdom, leadership, savvy, and deep experience as candidate Callie Ackland has. For the past decade, Callie has been involved with a wide range of endeavors requiring initiating, planning, budgeting, training, leading, and business operating. Along with this impressive path, she has been honored and recognized and with awards for her skill and for her active leadership. Also evident is her strength in environmental sustainability, housing and rental justice, small business development, and community building. And attractively, Callie is a candidate from the millennial population who will add a new important dimension to the Springfield Council. Most impressive is the very beginning of her career as a naval cryptologic linguist dealing with classified intelligence and initiating and leading the development of a training program that qualified 20-plus interpreters for a high-priority operation. I have worked closely with Callie at the library over the past 6 months and have been impressed with her initiative, participation, and leadership, well beyond those of just a community activist, as some prefer to see her. I believe she would be an outstanding, active, and prepared City Council member. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are CJ Mann and Peggy Dame.
Good evening. I am CJ Mann, Ward 4 neighborhood activist, a 50-year renter, and candidate for the vacant spot on the council. I am the person in the commercial growing up to be my parents. I am that person that will strike up a conversation with literally everyone. Just ask the people at my neighborhood grocery store, laundromat, gas station, library, parks, pools, playgrounds, pharmacy. I make good use of my interactions. I want everyone to feel safe and sane. I ask them how they're doing, and I give them my kindness and caring and appreciation. I came to this appointment process to represent all the neighborhoods I've lived in the past 40 years. I have lived in 4 of the 6 wards and have family living in the other 2. I've lived in Washburn, Game Farm Village, Mid and Central Springfield, plus 35 years on the block I call home. Wards are artificial boundaries on a planner's map. All neighborhoods have pockets of underrepresented people who need to share their lived experiences in order to help shape policies that affect our everyday lives. I believe that true representation must reflect the community's demographics. Our needs are based on the struggles we face every day. Underrepresented people need to be heard and have their opinions and insights respected. Representative governance can have its drawbacks. It can lead to power concentration. It can lead to prioritizing the interests of special groups and ignoring the needs of the general public. I hope tonight that the underrepresented, the disenfranchised, and those who feel like they cannot come here, that if they were brave enough to immerse themselves in civic engagement, they fear they would be unheard. And I hope to be the conduit to that percentage of our residents. I hope that the final decision reflects the need to add a diverse perspective to the council. If the council does not believe that my 40 years of community engagement equates to my appointment, I will be sad, not for me personally, but for the marginalized neighborhoods, the communities of color, and for our town.
Thank you.
Mayor Van Gordon and Springfield City Councilors. My name is Peggy Dame. I would like to highly recommend Allie Ackland for the current interim city councilor position. She loves Springfield and is committed to making it a livable, vibrant community for families and businesses. She has the work ethic, problem-solving skills, and very likable personality that makes committee work both productive and enjoyable. It seems to me that in most city councils, the expectations for members should be less on ideology and more about character, relationships, and practical judgment. They need to be trustworthy, responsive to their constituents, pragmatic, community-minded, and collaborative. I believe Callie has all of these qualities. Some of the qualities have perhaps come from her background and varied work history. Someone already mentioned her being a veteran in the U.S. Navy, having served 4 years. She's patriotic and has developed many work skills during her time in the military, where she translated combatant communications, drafted intelligence reports, and trained interpreters. And even while in the military, she earned commendation for excellent leadership and Navy Volunteer of the Year. She's an Oregonian and grew up in a small town north of here. She knows what small towns need to be livable and productive communities. While she has lived in Springfield for only the last 3 years or 4 years, she's already shown her commitment to being an integral part of Springfield for her volunteer work on the Planning Commission, the Eugene Tenant Association, the Live Healthy Lane Group, and is now applying for the City Council. Callie also understands small businesses. What better way to learn fiscal responsibility than starting and operating your own small business? Callie owned and operated 2 small businesses for over 5 years. She managed budgets, supervised employees, and was involved in promotions and sales. Finally, she's been able to balance multiple demands in volunteer positions and work while also being a student at Lane Community College in General Studies and Political Science, and has just recently been accepted at the U of O. And in spite of all of her activities and busy schedule, she's always approachable and a pleasure to work with. Overall, I'm very impressed with Callie's character, work ethic, and interest in making the world a better place for all of us. I wish you the best in your search for a new counselor to help you finish up your 2026 years. Springfield residents deserve a caring and productive community. Callie Ackland would certainly help you as you work together with your citizenry to make Springfield the best city it can be.
Thank you. The next 2 cards I have are Michelle Postal and Amanda Wolberg.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Van Gordon, councilors, good evening. My name is Michelle Postal. I'm here before you this evening to respectfully request that you appoint Callie Ackland to the open city councilor position. My career was in marketing and administration for nearly 40 years. I've worked for a large national company, a medium-sized Oregon company, and a family-owned newspaper in Grants Pass. I was in management since 1986 until I retired in 2013. I had the privilege and the chore of interviewing, hiring, and yes, sometimes firing employees. I learned how to choose the best candidates. I often interviewed candidates 3 or more times because I wanted to see their more relaxed, authentic self. Because making a mistake in hiring has consequences, but hitting the mark has rewards. I've known Callie for a couple of years now, and I have to say I was impressed with her from the first time we met. We've worked together on a committee for the last year, and she has been the lead of that committee. She's always prompt, thorough, responsible. I've admired her ability to lead our group of 3 who are old enough to be her grandmothers. She has demonstrated attention to detail, integrity, enthusiasm, follow-through, and excellent communications with us. As she has told me many times, Callie possesses a sincere passion for this community, your community, her community. I see it. You must see it in her enthusiasm and her sincerity. Callie is a United States Navy veteran who served her country well. She's a volunteer in service to Lane County, a student with a strong work ethic, and an employee who serves others. Now, Callie is asking for the privilege to serve constituents by helping to address current issues while preparing Springfield for the future by supporting smart, strategic growth and development. If I were hiring, I'd hire Callie. My experience and my instincts tell me she's the right person for this position at this moment. Take her fresh outlook, her intelligence, her talents, and put them to work for Springfield. I know a winner when I see one, and Callie is a winner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I go? Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Is that better?
Yep.
All right. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. A couple weeks ago, I came here with a proposal for a police oversight committee that would be run by civilians, preferably volunteers, to avoid corruption. I called the city manager's office to request that this get pushed further because I think it's absolutely necessary. There is a child trafficking problem here and in Eugene. I've had to make multiple police reports about the same stuff happening in the same places on repeat, and I don't make this stuff up. My reports contain video evidence, thermal imaging, blood stains, missing persons reports, vehicles with mismatched license plates. There's a quiz on the Department of Homeland Security website you can take for if you're able to recognize human trafficking or not. I get 100% on that quiz, and I'm studying criminal justice. And I was basically told by the Springfield Police Department that I would be arrested if I continue to report this. As a citizen, I have a right to report suspicious activity. And not only do I have a right to, I feel it's my duty. Because as a community, we need to look out for each other. We need to look out for each other's safety, especially those of the people that can't speak for themselves. And a lot of times they don't, because people that are in these trafficking situations, they're groomed, they're threatened, fear is instilled in them to teach them not to talk, not to speak about certain things. So if I see something that seems off to me, I feel an obligation to speak about that. And they've tried to weaponize crisis response against me, which I find disturbing because I'm going to play for you a clip. And this is from Jonathan Lockwood, who works for Kim Thatcher's office. You don't have to take my word for any of this stuff, okay? But basically, what he's talking about is the state is profiting off CPS pulling kids out of their homes, putting them in these residential facilities, and you're going to hear what happens there, but they're getting sexually abused. They're being made to make first responders uniforms. So maybe that's why they don't want me reporting it. I don't know. And I'm going to play this clip for you. And the last thing I'm going to say on my end is I feel like you guys owe not only me, but this community a response on this issue. Sorry.
When I was working on the state's so-called foster care system, state custody system, child trafficking system, where hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars is being profited on the backs of those kids. Oregon was taking kids out of homes. The secretary for the department under Kate Brown, Farabors, sat across the seat from me in Senator Thatcher's office, who I was working with, and told me, "You act like you were just taking kids out of homes." And I looked at him and I said, "That is exactly what you're doing." And I said, "You will address the senator with the rest of your questions." That's what they were doing. They were sending kids across state lines into psychiatric facilities with no human rights violations, including a rape room with blood smeared across the wall, kids getting.
Next two cards I have are Fabian Gomez Hernandez and Mike Corvola.
Councilors, mayor, staff. I would first like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak in front of all of you today. I am here tonight to
state for the record.
Oh, sorry. My name is Fabian Gomez Fernandez. I am a resident of Ward 4. Again, thank you all for your time. I'm here today to show my strong support for Callie Ackland for the Ward 4 council seat. In the short time I have known Callie, she has left a tremendous impression on me. I have seen firsthand her ability to ensure that every voice is heard in conversations. I've also seen her ability to ensure that questions are asked that not only spark the most lively and fruitful conversations I have ever been a part of in meetings, but I've also seen her get information from expert matter professionals weigh the pros and cons of every single piece of data that reaches the packet that we read and make a decisive, thorough, and proactive decision in every single one of these choices. For these reasons and many more, she has gained the respect and admiration of many Springfield residents, me including. And this is why I would like to, again, advise you guys to please appoint Callie Ackland for the C4 ward position. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Koivula. I reside in Ward 2 up on Kelly Butte. I'm coming here again to ask you to support Callie Ackland for the Ward 4 vacancy. There is no better candidate for this position. She brings a substantial resume as a veteran, a small business owner, and is knowledgeable about city government, budgeting, housing, and land use. She brings a perspective as a younger person and a renter that we don't have on the council. She studies all the information that's presented by staff, is always prepared for discussions, and actively seeks out information and takes the time to fully understand the issues that are facing the city. I have been particularly impressed with her work on the Planning Commission, especially when dealing with the state mandates for housing, transportation, and environmental regulation. I think that she's a really good example of a young leader in our community, and I would actually be honored to see her on the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next two speakers are Timothy Morris and Kai Fireside.
Good evening. Mayor Van Gordon, councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. For the record, my name is Timothy Morris, and I'm here representing myself. I'm here today to join the chorus of support for Callie.
Would you state your address or location in the city for the record too, please?
I am a resident of Eugene. Yes. But I am here today to speak in favor of Callie Ackland and join the chorus of support for her. I will be brief. Callie has done her work in talking to community members, asking questions and sharing her vision for what the city could look like. And in these conversations, in conversations with Callie that I myself have had with community members with Callie and with leaders across Springfield, there is a common thread that continues to come up each and every time. And Callie is asking this question: how do we make Springfield better for everyone? This is who you want by your side. A partner who supports vulnerable communities, a small business owner and veteran who has already given much to Springfield, and a well-informed leader who truly cares. I urge you to support and vote to appoint Callie Ackland to be on your side. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kai Fireside. I live inside Ward 1. As you deliberate tonight over who to appoint to the open council seat, I ask that you consider the community. Of the applicants, there are two who I regularly see volunteering in our community, and I stick my nose in a lot of community business. But CJ Mann is someone that I see everywhere, and every time I run into her, she greets me warmly by name, whether that's at City Hall or the Wildish Theater. She is out there in the community volunteering her time. The other applicant is, of course, Callie Ackland, and you've heard a lot about her tonight, but the fact that she shows up for the community means that she values us. And values cannot be taught. These two women are the applicants who truly value this community, and one of the two of them should sit in that empty chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Amelia and Evelyn Pyres, and then
My name is Anli and I am 7 years old. I wanted to speak today because the library is very important to me. I like to go to the library, and a lot of kids, grown-ups, and even teenagers do too. Friends meet, kids read, and children play. The library teaches us things just like a school does. Story time is very very popular too, and my friends would be heartbroken if you took it away. Please, it is very important that you don't take money away from the library. Hi, my name is Evelyn, and I am 5 years old. I am here to talk about the library and the librarians. I think we need to get librarians back because the librarians help us, the library, and help kids learn to read and do other fun things like crafts and games. The librarians are important to me. I would feel sad if the library got rid of story times. I like when the librarians read books to us. Please keep our library safe.
Thank you. You guys did fantastic. I'm going to give a one-time exception to clapping for the kids. The next two cards I have are Ariel Sexton and Hava.
Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Hava Cronin. I am a Eugene resident. I'm here to share my support and enthusiasm for Callie Ackland for Springfield City Council. I worked in Springfield for Head Start of Lane County for 15 years. During that time, I was a member of the G Street Oasis Steering Committee, where I had the pleasure to work with then Councilor member Sean Van Gordon. That program continues to this day, serving Springfield's most vulnerable families with children. I retired from Head Start in January. The last 3 years of my career, I was the housing specialist. This is where my connection with Callie begins. I first met Callie through the Springfield Eugene Tenant Association call line. As a housing specialist, I called CETA on a regular basis for information and guidance. Callie was often on call and was extremely helpful with tenant-landlord laws and information relevant to the client needs. CETA plays a vital role for tenants in our community, being the only free resource for housing information support. Their data collection is invaluable for city planning and policies related to housing issues. Callie's commitment to her work as the tenant support specialist with CETA while being a college student is commendable. Her resume, which I'm sure you have seen, is replete with community-focused expertise. Her expansive employment and volunteer experience includes leading the Save the Library campaign here in Springfield, managing a smart reading program, ensuring voter integrity with the League of Women Voters, and owning 2 small businesses, and being appointed to the Springfield Planning Commission. And this is just a partial list. Callie also served our country in the United States Navy, translating highly sensitive communications under pressure for counterterrorism purposes. Through these work and volunteer positions, Callie has demonstrated the following skills: business administration, detailed analysis, personnel management, and planning skills. And that is just a partial list of her qualifications for a seat at the Springfield City Council. Our news is filled with how politicians are out of touch with the people. We see that daily on a national level. Local politics must be different. We need policymakers who serve the community at large and focus on the most vulnerable amongst us. Callie has that real-world experience, so necessary for making good policies. Callie brings incredible qualities to anything she undertakes. The council needs representations from a younger generation, someone who is a veteran and also a renter. I truly believe that Callie will be a great asset, communicator, and collaborator for the Springfield City Council. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ariel Sexton, and I am a resident of Springfield. I am here today to speak about our library, which is very fitting considering it's National Library Week. I'm hesitant to wait for the budget meeting next month because you are already making changes without us. Mr. Mayor, I will use some of your own words to describe the importance of the library. Whereas libraries serve as vibrant community hubs, connecting people with knowledge, technology, and resources, while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and cultural enrichment. Libraries empower job seekers and entrepreneurs by providing access to resources that support job growth and economic success. Those are great words, and they're true words.
but from what we can see so far, they seem like just words. Cuts have already been made, and a librarian has already been fired, all while the city manager receives a raise. What is yet to come? Please prioritize the library and implement a small 0.01% increase to the proposed payroll tax. Also, I want to add my name to the list of people here asking you to please appoint Callie Ackland to Ward 4. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are Mary Harwood and Diane Peterson.
Mayor Van Gordon and members of the City Council, my name is Diane Peterson and I'm a resident of Springfield. I'm here to express my strong support for the appointment of Callie Ackland to the Springfield City Council. Callie stands out for her consistent commitment to treating everyone, fellow council members, city staff, and the public with respect, politeness, and professionalism. In every interaction I've observed, she approaches people with care and a willingness to listen, regardless of political differences or personal relationships. I see this as a common thread throughout what I've learned about her work. Her background reflects both community involvement and thoughtful leadership. As a small business owner, she created a zero-waste store that became a welcoming community space. She organized events supporting local entrepreneurs and artists, hosted nonprofit meetings, and brought people together around shared goals. Her work earned recognition from a local city council for sustainable practices, showing her ability to build respect across perspectives. In her current role as a tenant rights specialist, Callie focuses on education and empowerment. She helps people understand their rights and engage constructively in civic processes. Her approach is collaborative. She listens, supports, and equips others to participate with confidence and dignity. Through her service on the Planning Commission, she has demonstrated the ability to weigh diverse perspectives and contribute thoughtfully to decisions shaping Springfield's future. Combined with her military experience, she brings professionalism, discipline, and the ability to work effectively within complex systems. Across all of her work, Callie consistently shows a belief in treating people with dignity and making space for every voice. She comes prepared, listens carefully, and knows how to disagree respectfully while maintaining strong working relationships. As a Springfield resident with 2 young children in Springfield Public Schools, this appointment matters to me. Callie has the qualities needed to serve all Springfield residents and to continue moving our community forward together. I strongly urge you to appoint her to the Springfield City Council. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak. My name is Mary Harwood. I won't reiterate all of the numerous reasons that the proposed library cuts are poor governance and bad ideas generally. I want to talk about process. Process is the highway system of democracy. It gets us where we need to be. The stops along the way are carefully planned. There are laws about how fast we can go and when we can pass and when we must slow down. The point of public comment is so that you will know about how the community feels regarding, say, proposed budgets and rules. The signs on the roadside to point in the right direction, if you will. You are deciding how our tax dollars are going to be spent. The problem with the city's process is that you are not listening. Have you heard from anyone who is in favor of proposed cuts to our library? We've been asked to trust the process. The process appears to be to wait until it is too late to do anything about it and pretend that there was nothing else that you could do. Why waste our time if you never planned for any other outcome? Deflecting responsibility and accepting predetermined outcomes are not the same as having no options. You alone are responsible for this decision, not the city management, which has already begun to implement the budget cuts, proposed cuts, 2.5 months before the proposed budget cuts are supposed to take place and weeks before formal public comment and voting will take place. Taking action before voting makes the public comment process pointless. For the council to passively allow this to happen is the same as giving your wholehearted approval. If you act or do not act, both are decisions. It is not too late to change course. These cuts are not inevitable. Many alternatives were shared with you tonight when you listened to comments regarding the payroll tax. Please consider these alternatives. Would anyone here who supports a well-funded library please raise your hand? Thank you. Council, you may or may not be reading the great books that the library provides, but you can at least read the room. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are Cadence Williams and James Anderson.
James Anderson. I live in Springfield, Ward 4. So just to rehash everything, just to summarize everything recently, you decided to close the parts of the Springfield Library and Museum right around the time you decided to give City Manager Nancy Newton a big raise. And she's making over $200,000 a year now, well over. I've been informed, I was wondering if you could confirm for me. I've been told that the city is planning on installing a huge fitness center right here in City Hall. Maybe you can confirm for the community whether that's true while you're making cuts to the library. I've also been told that City Manager Nancy Newton's break room area is getting brand new stainless steel appliances while the old appliances are still functional. That's just what I was told. Maybe you can confirm for the community. Mayor Sean Van Gordon, your mayor's fiscal stability task force consisted of approved costs of hiring not one, but two advisory companies to manipulate the task force. Eco Northwest and Funk Levi's were hired. Funk Levi's on their website states that they offer marketing services and PR. How much did you approve to pay for these two advisory committees? Again, I'm going to remind the community that the city charter states that the council has the power and the duty to hire and fire the city manager and the city attorney. I think you should answer to the community and see what they want you to do. You're supposed to serve us.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cadence Williams. I live and work in Ward 4. And I am here to emphatically endorse Callie Ackland to City Council. I've worked directly for her on several different projects and observed on a daily basis the leadership, the integrity, the discipline, and community-based thinking that I believe is critical for the role that you are looking to fill for our city. Callie grew up in Kaiser, Oregon, actually, only an hour north of us here in Springfield. Pretty similar city dynamic of a bigger city capital next to us as the smaller city to the side. You can look back to as young as 15 years old to see a demonstration of her relentless grit and care for others when she started her first business, Grab-A-Gown, which was a shed in her backyard converted into an affordable formal dress rental shop with thrifted and donated items. After serving in the Navy, as many people mentioned, she then launched Hippie Haven, a zero-waste store and community space. Her commitment to sustainable business and operations earned the store an award, and I saw firsthand how she supported other small businesses through mentorship and practical help. Callie's approach to tenant advocacy is equally pragmatic and empowering. Since October 2024, she has worked at CETA as a tenant support specialist, coaching tenants on self-advocacy and connecting people to services without judgment. The perspective and firsthand knowledge is direly needed on our council, as almost half of our residents are renters, including myself. Her ongoing studies in political science with minors in sustainable business and climate studies reinforce her hands-on experience that she is already bringing to the table. Callie's priorities in housing justice, small business development, and community building aren't abstract to her. These have been part of her daily life for years. I've watched her organize volunteers for various causes, run voter registration drives, support youth development programs, and contribute to Lane Community Health Improvement Plan. She leads by example and brings people together around realistic and compassionate solutions. In my opinion, no other candidate demonstrates the same lifelong commitment to serving others. Active patriotism, genuine leadership, visionary outlook, and determination to get things done. As a student, a veteran, and a renter, she would bring a fresh and much needed perspective to the council, something that is unrepresented among yourselves and the candidates alike. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find another all-rounder capable of juggling the nuances of policy and people management needed for such a position like this. And my ward would suffer losing such a paragon for our city. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you. The next two cards are Ruth Seeger and Taylor Harwood.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Seeger and I live in Eugene. I'm here tonight to support Callie Ackland, like a whole bunch of people in the room, which is fun to see. Callie is interested in your vacant Ward 4 position on the City Council here in Springfield. Callie is hardworking, she's honest, she's reliable, and she's effective. I met Callie for the first time just about a year ago. We volunteer together now at a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization here in Lane County. And upon joining, Callie stepped right up to take on some work that was in need of some serious leadership. She has outperformed my expectations in a large way. She's done so with efficiency, collaboration, and abundant kindness. She works well with others. She is a good listener. She is conscientious about time management in scheduling both herself and others. She stays on task. She excels at comprehensive follow-up. I can say without any hesitation that Callie would be a terrific asset to the Springfield City Council. And in my opinion, she is one of Lane County's emerging next generation leaders. I refer you to the letter I submitted on March 2nd for additional information, and I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Hi again. My name is Taylor Harwood. I live in Ward 3, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself and not my employer. I recommend that you all appoint Callie Ackland to the vacant Ward 4 seat. Her impressive resume, character, and work ethic will allow her to hit the ground running and get to work for Springfield. I appreciate her intelligence, leadership, and passion for Springfield, as well as her kindness, and most of all, her hard work and follow-through. I also appreciate that there might be someone on the council of my generation, especially as someone who was born and raised in Springfield and works here and really cares about the community. As a renter myself, I really value her experience supporting tenants and as a renter. I've actually had to use the CETA as a resource, and I really appreciated that it was there for me. Housing is essential for a healthy community, and this council can show that it's a priority by picking Callie Ackland to represent Springfield. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. We are at the end of 45 minutes. Neil, how many hands do we have up so we can just do a quick check-in?
Currently, we just have one.
Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 more cards. So is everybody comfortable continuing? Okay. Why don't we go to the online queue to make sure we get them in, and then we'll return back to the cards.
All right, online we have Dan Highstand, and Dan, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Hello, my name is Dan Heaston. I live in Ward 2 in Springfield, and thanks for your time tonight. So I'm going to read a quote real quick. Quote, "The Springfield City Council is committed to fostering an environment that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Springfield is a diverse community, and we celebrate diversity of culture, background, experience, and thought," unquote. So this language originates from the Springfield City Council's statement on the council's website. And these are, they're powerful words, but only if they're embraced as more than just a feel-good, check-the-box action with no follow-through. And so it's within this context that I wish to express my enthusiastic support for the appointment of Callie Ackland to the Springfield City Council. Tonight, I see an opportunity to address these lofty aspirations of inclusion by adding a voice in the council that more accurately reflects the community's diverse population. And that voice is Callie's. Like approximately 45% of our Springfield friends and neighbors, Callie's a renter. If she were to join the council, it's my understanding that she would be the only council person who does not own a house. In other words, she would be the only renter. Her voice would give that segment of the population, nearly half of our community, the agency it currently lacks and the insight this governing body desperately needs. Callie would also better represent the median age of Springfield residents, about 37 and a half years old, that again is absent from this elected board. Her youth, her energy, and her connection to the experiences of living in a time of extreme economic hardship would be invaluable and provide much needed change. While she is young, she is not inexperienced. She's a former small business owner, a Navy veteran, and most importantly, a tenant rights specialist with the Springfield Eugene Tenant Association and a member of the Springfield Planning Commission. In the time I've known Callie, I've been impressed by her tenacity, her courage, her professionalism, and perhaps most importantly, her willingness to actively listen and learn. I think it's obvious by the many comments tonight. It's been incredible, actually. I'm not alone in these feelings. So summing up, if the council seeks to live by the lofty aspirations it purports to embrace, you will appoint Callie Ackland. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other hands?
No other hands.
Okay, then we're going to go back to the cards. Tasha Cardona and Sean Daniel.
Good evening. My name is Sean Daniel, and I live in Ward 2. I appreciate the chance to talk tonight, so thank you. I'd just like to express my support for the appointment of Callie Ackland to the Springfield City Council, like so many others. In getting to know Callie, I've seen how she puts community service front and center and how she's responsive to questions and concerns from community members. Callie understands what it's like to be a business owner, as others have said, and she understands the effect that a business can have on the community. In thinking about community, also as others have alluded to, she brings that important perspective as a renter to the council. And her work as with the Springfield Eugene Tenant Association shows how she can take complex legal information and make it accessible to everyday folks. She answers questions with patience and clarity, and again, as others have stated, she treats everyone with dignity. Callie's service on the Springfield Planning Commission shows how her ability to listen carefully to testimony and make recommendations, knowing that these policy decisions affect people's lives. They affect our homes, our businesses, our neighborhoods. And finally, Callie has extensive experience as a volunteer by supporting young students and families as a coordinator for the Smart Reading program, as a cadet leader mentoring youth through military-style training, as a museum docent sharing local history, and as a community outreach coordinator teaching nonviolence. So for all those reasons, I know Callie would serve the people of Springfield well, and I recommend that you appoint her to the council without delay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tasha Cardona. I live in Springfield in Ward 3. 10 years ago, I chose to live in Springfield really very intentionally. And I'm really proud to be a community member and to have built a life in a community here. One of the main reasons I felt at home in Springfield is because I could see and experience a society with a robust middle class. I could see the effort made into making our downtown beautiful and investing in public safety, new school buildings like Hamlin Middle School, where my daughter will be a sixth grader next year, and investing in our infrastructure. I live off of 14th, and I appreciate the new road and sidewalks. So I just really appreciate living in a city that invests in its community. So that's why I felt compelled to express, and I have in previously and will continue to do so, my deep concern when I learned of the catastrophic budget cuts made to the library. I've heard the argument, everyone's taking cuts, departments are taking cuts. I understand we have, a fiscal cliff and it's a big problem to solve. But when we look at the numbers, that argument falls apart. Roughly $300,000 cut to the library represents something of about 10 to 15% of the total budget. So this really fundamentally changes what the library can offer. Meanwhile, reduction to, for example, police funding, which of course, this isn't about library versus the police. In fact, investing in a library is really beneficial to a healthy police force. But of course, that's our largest line item budget, and their budget cut was 1 to 3%, depending on the numbers that you cut. So that is not a shared sacrifice to fix this budget shortfall problem. That is 5 to 10 times deeper proportionately to the library. And it's being applied to one of the most impactful services that we have. I mean, there's data that is endless to show the reduction in poverty, which means reduction in crime. And then we are also all going to be facing the major cuts to Springfield public schools. I've heard of closing schools on the table, cutting principals to elementary schools on the table. Those are catastrophic cuts. And so this is the time we actually need to increase our library funding and provide those services. I also appreciate the statement that someone made of how just kind of deeply inappropriate and lacking in empathy it is for city officials to have their salaries increased while our librarians are getting laid off. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Cure and Nick Aguyo. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Jojo Breslin. Okay, so it looks like, Nick, you are going to be the last one.
Good evening. My name is Nick Aguayo, and I am representing myself and a resident of Springfield. I'm here today as a proud resident of this community to speak in support again of Callie Ackland's appointment to our city council. I've had the privilege of knowing Callie for some time now, and I can tell you with confidence she is exactly the kind of person that should be a part of this council. I'm here to talk to you about her extreme attention to detail and professionalism and her work supporting low-income residents. I'm delighted to see how many other people came here to share examples of this from so many different places. It's abundantly clear that Callie is the strongest candidate to fill this position. Callie approaches every challenge with deep-rooted ethics. Integrity isn't optional in public service, it's the foundation. With Callie, this community can trust that every decision she makes will be guided by what is right for citizens, not just what's easy. Callie doesn't just show up. Callie doesn't just show up. She's fully committed, fully engaged, and fully invested in the people around her. Callie's work has given her a deep understanding of the support systems and social services as a tenant educator providing information on local services. She has a genuine first-hand understanding of the challenges facing residents of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, not from a distance, but with real empathy and practical knowledge providing education and support to our community. We know how hard it can be to get people involved, and today is just a small example of what Callie can do. What more could you ask for in a counselor than someone with such intimate knowledge of support for those who need it the most? What more can you ask than someone who can inspire so much confidence to come into this room and speak today? This council deserves someone who is detail-oriented, principled, passionate, and deeply connected to the needs of all our residents. Callie is that person, and everyone on this side of the room can see it, and I hope you do too.
Thank you. That was the last card that I had. Was there any council response? Okay. we still have two items before we get to Ward 4, so please be patient with us. The one recommendation I would have, especially for folks that are here about library funding, the schedule for budget committee is up online and it's got the process, and that will be the place where we will both take public testimony and deliberate about what we want to do at that point. All right. Next item, please.
Next item is ordinances. Ordinance number 1 is annexation of territory to the city of Springfield and Willamette Park and Recreation District. Annex 1.94 acres of R1 residential property located at map 18-02-05-24, tax lot 06100, withdrawing the same territory from the Willackenzie Springfield Rural Fire Protection District. Mark Rust is here for this item.
And council, while Mark is coming up to get settled, this also would be an opportunity to report any additional ex parte contacts that you may have had since the hearing at the last regular session and this day. This is for the annexation item. If you have nothing to declare, you can just move forward.
We don't need to go down the row. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody have additional items. Hello, Mark.
Good evening, councilors and mayor. Mark Rust with Current Planning for the city of Springfield. I have nothing further to add. The only reason this wasn't on consent tonight was so you had the opportunity to declare any additional ex parte contacts. So our recommendation is the same as it was at the hearing 2 weeks ago, and that is for adoption.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
I move to adopt an ordinance annexing certain territory map 18-02-05-24, tax lot 06100 to the city of Springfield and Willamette Park and Recreation District, withdrawing the same territory from the Willackenzie Springfield Rural Fire Protection District, adopting a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
I will second that.
Well, could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Councilor Weber.
Yes.
Councilor Mo.
Yes.
Councilor Rodley.
Yes.
Councilor Buck.
Yes.
And Councilor Stout.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes 5 yeses, 0 nos. Next item.
Under business from the city manager, item number 1 is the fiscal year 2027 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, Annual Action Plan. Aaron Fifield is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight seeking your approval of the fiscal year 2027 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. As you know, each year the city is entitled to receive an allocation of CDBG funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. In order to receive these funds, the city must develop an annual action plan describing how it plans to allocate funds to address local community needs. The proposed uses of funding must align with allowed uses within the CDBG grant program, as well as with local community needs and strategies that were identified in the 2025 Eugene Springfield Consolidated Plan. As we talked at the last work session on February 23rd, the annual action plan activities need to align with the strategies in the consolidated plan, but they can only be those are only CDBG funded activities. The council does a number of other strategies in your work beyond the CDBG funding that also align with those strategies. For fiscal year 2027, Springfield is projected to have a total of about $550,000 in CDBG funding available. And as part of our community participation process, the council's Community Development Advisory Committee has met twice and held 2 public hearings. They met on January 28th. They met again on April 8th. In between that, we came to council for your direction on putting out the draft action plan. That action plan was put forward for 30 days. We received 2 public comments. Those public comments are included in the packet. Those comments were addressed at this Community Development Advisory Committee meeting on April 8th, and the committee has put forward a recommendation for allocation. To sum up, the CDAC is recommending allocation for this year's action plan for 3 activities. One, for the home repair program, about $362,000. As you know, the home repair program helps fund low-income homeowners with needed home repairs and maintenance to address issues of health, safety, and accessibility. Homeowners must earn no more than 50% of the area median income. The CDAC is also recommending that the CDBG funds go toward supporting the human services system. This is the city's contribution of CDBG funds to the Lane County Human Services Division. And finally, the CDAC is recommending that the grant also support the administrative and planning of staff that goes into administering the grant. I'm available if you have questions.
Councilor Rodley.
No questions. I promise I will not pick on you about wanting more of this and more braided of that. I just wanted to say that I appreciate you, Aaron, as you know, because we've been working on this for a while. And I also appreciate that we've started to tell the story of the home repair program and how impactful that is to people's lives. And for folks who don't know, like this, the city of Springfield doesn't necessarily do human services, but we're part of a regional human services. And Councilor Weber and I sit on the Human Services Commission, and this is our contribution to that. And I always am trying to get more, and you are constantly reminding me that there is a cap. And then I want to go to Washington and fight HUD to get more money to do that. This funding for folks also this is like unencumbered funding, because when we contribute this to the human services kind of collective, then it can be used in all sorts of ways. It's very different than grant funding, which is tied to specific things. And so it's like gold. I think that there was something in here from Kate Budd, who probably will say that that money is like gold. So I am glad that we get to continue to do this. I will probably continue to pick on you, just not tonight, to try to get more of that to contribute to human services or more money from other places. But I just wanted to say that for folks to know that this is hard money to come by. It hasn't grown much, and we try to do the most good for the people who are most impacted with this funding. So thank you.
Anybody else? I think we're ready for the motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2027 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and authorize the city manager to execute all documents needed to give effect to the city's agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for these funds.
I will second.
Well, could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Councilor Weber.
Yes.
Councilor Mo.
Yes.
Councilor Rodley.
Yes.
Councilor Buck. And Councilor Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes, 5 yeses, 0 nos. Next item, please.
Any other business from the city manager?
Just very quickly, I also want to echo Councilor Rodley's sentiments about Aaron's work with the CDBG plan. It's really hard to administer these federal programs, and it seems like the paperwork and red tape gets increasingly more each time. And so, Aaron, thank you for that. The work that you do directly makes people's lives better in our city, and I'm very proud of that and proud of your work. So thank you.
The next item is business from the city attorney, the Ward 4 interim councilor deliberation and decision, and Mary Bridget is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to facilitate the next item, which is the deliberation for the Ward 4 vacancy. I have a few procedural matters before you get going on the deliberation. One has to do with the public comment in the packet. For this vacancy, we tried to collect public comment and then include that in the packet, and that would be written comment that came into councilors or the city manager's office. It should be reflected in the packet. If it's not in the packet, I do want the public to know that it did get forwarded to the council. So if it didn't make the cut for getting published in the packet, those materials did still get to the decision makers. Also, before you start your deliberations, I'd like to have a conversation about voting, so you can get that part of it out of the way before you move on to your discussion. So this item tonight for a filling a ward vacancy requires a vote of 4. There would be 5 votes. It's an uneven number, so the mayor would not vote in this because he would not be breaking a tie. I laid out some voting methods in the memo, and I thought we could just go through those now. I do recommend that you arrive at and make a decision about what kind of method you want to do for voting That doesn't mean you're forced into voting right away. You have plenty of time to deliberate this item. But in the effort of transparency and clarity for the folks and yourselves, I think it would be good to have a discussion about voting and sort of get that off the table. There were 4 voting methods in your packet. The first one is the one that I would recommend, and it's a successive ballot with elimination. So in this one, you wouldn't be doing motions or nominating folks. It would just be, and I think for this, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call the vote, and then Allison and Neil will tally. So we're sort of dividing up, which is a little different than what we would do. But with this one, I would just start like on one end, call them out, work out this way. Then we would tally those votes. And you would have, if you don't get to 4 votes, if you get to 4 votes, you can make your appointment. If you don't get to 4 votes, then what you can do is eliminate or remove any candidates who did not get, who got lesser votes or no votes. And then you just keep, you could have more discussion or you could keep voting. The second method is a little more normal about how you typically do your business, and it has motions and seconds. So it's familiar, but it can get a little cumbersome when you're trying to have, when you have multiple candidates for one office. So that's one reason why there's some drawbacks with that one. The third one is a 2-stage voting. You know, sometimes what council will do is they'll take a vote similar to the first method where I just said that we would list out people. The candidates with the 2 highest then become essentially the 2 that you vote for. So then they would be like your pool. That may not work as well. It may not be, the council may not want to get to 2 candidates so quickly. So that's something to keep in mind. The fourth one I included is a modified ranked choice voting. I don't know that I would recommend that at this point. I'd come up with that earlier in the process. Ranked choice voting is getting more popular, so I thought I would make it an option. It might be something more appropriate for like a BCC appointment. But in that one, you actually write out a written ballot of all of your choices. Since this is a public meeting, we'd have to read it, and then we would go through the ranked choice voting process. If you wanted to do that, we'd kind of have to get set up and do a little recess when you're ready to vote. But I did want to have that available for folks. So if you want to start talking about voting and have any questions, I'm ready.
I don't know that we need to make any cutting edge democracy technology this evening. Councilor Rodley.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that. Could we do, just to be fun, like, could we do a modified of the ranked choice? Could we do, which we've done in the past, to say, here's my top 2, like 1 and a 2, as opposed to a 1 and to 5? I mean,
well, you
to
could
get us into a more
to narrow it down.
deliberation. Yeah.
I think then that would be, I would recommend you to do the 2-stage voting. And what we could do on that one is when we're calling, we could have people say they're 1 and 2. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And then that would be your pool out of that. And then also keep in mind, yes, I think you could do that. And keep in mind, if you start voting and you get stalled out, then we can back out and look at process again. Like, this is your show.
I don't know if anybody else wants to do that.
I just want us to go down the line.
Councilor Weber.
I prefer the simple, clean number 1 method.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
I guess I'm kind of with Corey here, Councilor Rodley. I feel like that method with the top 2 really speaks to what we've heard from the community.
Being put on the spot, I would actually join with Councilors Rodley and Buck on this one.
Okay.
Okay, so we need somebody, the city attorney is going to want that in the form of a motion. So Councilor Rodley, can you form a motion? You could just do option 3.
I move that.
Back on.
Oh, thank you. I turned it on, you turned it off. I move that we, in our deliberation voting, we list our first and second choice on the first round.
I second.
Okay. Before I ask for somebody to call the vote on this, Mary Bridget, could you clarify if under this voting, does the who you list first matter? I just,
No,
or we're
that's a
just
good-
trying to pool them.
That's a good point. I don't think it does matter. I think you're just getting a pool of two candidates that you vote on further. If that's my understanding, Councilor. Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing head nods that we're all working under the same assumptions. Okay, so I don't know who's going to call the vote here.
Well, I could do it since I'd say. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor to do a modified two-step stage voting where the council, when their vote is called, they'll name two people. Is there a second? And there was a second. Councilor Buck, I'm sorry. Okay, and I'll go ahead and start to count the vote, and I'll just start here. Councilor Buck?
Well, I'm in favor of looking at Callie Ackland.
No, we're
Just doing the motion, the process.
just need a motion to do the process. Just yes or no.
Yes.
Councilor Stout?
Yes.
Councilor Weber?
Yes.
Councilor Radley?
Yes.
And Councilor Mo? Okay. Now, I will be quiet and or unless you have a question, you can deliver.
I just wanted to speak to the process before we do the vote.
Go for it.
If I can do that. I wanted to, there's a few things I want to say about the process. First and foremost, I would like to thank Allison for tracking all of the emails. It was, we got them to personal emails. They came in all the different ways. I know that I saw some of those emails probably 10 times as we were all trying to be as transparent as possible. So I really appreciate Allison and the city manager's office trying to keep them as tidy as possible for us. The other thing I want to say is I was not here for the interviews, and there were community members who did notice that and had opinions and feelings about that. I had surgery that morning, so and was unable to get here in time, but I did watch all of the interviews the next morning, first thing. So, and I'm probably not the only one who feels like we had such an incredible pool. It's very exciting. In Springfield, often we have people who run for offices or are appointed without, and not to pick on Councilor Buck, but, are a one person, so it just makes the democracy and the process so much better to make this very difficult to choose. So it was great to watch all of those. I also want to say, which I think is interesting, and I just want to say it out loud, in the times that I have been on council and we've had input, I don't know that we have ever had so much input from Eugene, that Eugene had such strong opinions about who we put on our city council. I'm not sure how Eugene would feel if we had strong opinions about who we put on their city council. So I found that to be a very interesting new development. I don't know if it's a predictor of the future or just unique to this, but mostly I just really appreciate staff for trying to keep us on task as we move through this. So thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to make comments? So the plan looks like you're going to give your top two. We're going to narrow the pool, and then we're going to deliberate some more if people have other things they want to say. Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay, are you ready? All right. Okay, I will start the first vote. Councilor Buck?
All right. So, okay. We're nominating my top two this time. Okay. I got it right. So, my top two are Callie Ackland and Luke McAllister.
Thank you. Councilor Stout?
My top two are Ms. Quadros and Mr. McAllister.
Based on community feedback alone, Callie Ackland and Luke McAllister would be my two choices.
Councilor Radley?
My top two are CJ Mann and Callie Ackland.
Callie Ackland and CJ Mann.
Okay. Give me just a minute here to confer with the people tallying. We can see the top two. Okay. The tallies are 4 for Callie Ackland, 3 for Luke McAllister, and 2 for CJ Mann, 1 for Quadros.
Okay, so that would mean that we would effectively talk about Callie and Luke next. Before we do that, I want to thank Jill for applying. Like, your commitment to this community. It really has been noticed as we've read additional material. And then CJ, who is the ever-present volunteer, your commitment through Willamette Lane and on the Wildish Theater, I noticed that and I appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead.
And I would just like to say to CJ that I have been honored to vote for you twice for this position. So, and the other thing that I was going to say in the process is, please run. Like this appointment is just through November. So if this is something you're passionate about, and as somebody who probably never could have gotten appointed to city council and had to run for it, please run if it's something you want to do, and just come on out and we'll do it.
Okay, now that Councilor Rodley brought that up while we're getting organized, you make sure you check the calendar. It's like August when you have to file. So, okay, Councilor Buck, go ahead.
I want to say that, one of the things that I appreciate is the community really asked us to invest our time in looking at this, not only through letters, phone calls, other communications, and so did the candidates themselves. Taking the time to meet with all of us and get a sense of what's it like to be on this side, and do I really want this? Because that was my question. If we appoint you, are you sure you really want to be part of this? And I was able to ask that question to my top 2, and they both said, yeah. So, and I appreciate that. I think we could have picked probably 3 or 4 really good candidates out of this pool. And so thank you, Springfield, for all of your feedback. This was not easy.
Okay, Bridget, do we need to select a different voting method, or can we just go down the road?
If you're ready to vote, I can just, we could do a vote now unless there's further discussion or deliberation.
To add, are people ready to give us their top selection? I think we're ready.
Okay. All right. I will start working on my left. Councilor Buck. Name the candidate that you would like to vote for.
It's very hard for me because I want them both. I think probably based on all the feedback, I would have to say Callie.
Councilor Stout.
My vote is for Luke.
Councilor Weber.
My vote is also for Luke.
Councilor Rodley.
Callie Ackland.
Councilor Mo.
Callie.
That's 3 votes for Callie Ackland and 2 votes for Luke McAllister. As I mentioned, this is a vote by the charter that requires 4 votes. So to impasse now, you could have further conversation now, or provide me with direction on what you like to do.
Well, we can't stall till November, so we got to make a decision somehow. Does somebody want to jump in here about either the logic about why the person they had was first, or Councilor Weber?
So as Councilor Buck mentioned, I know several of us have met with both Callie and Luke. I've watched planning commission meetings. I've read every recommendation that has been submitted through email. And I've considered many conversations with community members who shared their thoughts outside of that venue. I know a lot of people in the community, they call, they stop you, wherever in Rotary, at a Willamette Lane event, wherever I am in the community. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has that experience up here. So just meeting Callie and talking with her, she's done a lot for the community. I know her heart is in the right place. She has this interest in serving Springfield. I don't quite yet feel like she's ready to sit behind this, on this side of the room. For 6 years, I have, and I understand that people don't necessarily agree with this, but I do know Luke. I have watched him for 6 years grow into the leader he is today. He didn't start there. He has taken 6 years to really work through a lot of different situations and become the person he is. He is a small business owner. He really does invest his time in this community and his money in this community. He cares about this community a lot, and I just want everyone to know that. I've watched him navigate challenging situations personally and professionally with humility, with grace, with curiosity, and with respect for differing viewpoints. He has a genuine desire to find the best possible outcome, and his professional experience, volunteer service, and fresh perspective will be valuable in the discussions that we're facing in the near term.
Councilor Buck.
For me, this was really tough because I definitely see all of the qualities that Callie brings to the table, and I hear the support from the community. And maybe what's not presented in the public view, you've seen it in the packets and things like that. But it's also, I think there's a strong argument for Luke as well. His work on the Willamette Lane Foundation, building up a foundation that essentially wasn't functional, and he was instrumental in making that functional yet again. Creating partnerships not only with our Team Springfield, but with the business community through the chamber. They really spoke highly of his work and his ability to listen to all sides. And so I'm pretty conflicted here because I think both of them bring a lot to the table, and I think different aspects of the community are really supporting both Luke and Callie. And so I don't think we have an easy decision here. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong here in my head. I think that it's really hard. I could support either of these candidates. I wanted to make sure that both of them are considered tonight. And so those are the things. And I also want to say that I see the same things from Callie when she asked for feedback. What can I do differently? I gave her some feedback, and then she implemented it. And so I think that really speaks strongly of a person that's willing to take feedback, even when it means I have to change course. So for me, I could support either of these candidates really easily. And I feel like I support both of them.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay.
I think that one of the things that for me was a consideration in thinking about Luke is we already have very strong Rotarian representation on this council. And thinking about having diversity of perspectives, and as someone who for the majority of their adult life was a renter, probably longer than some other folks have been renters, it is a perspective, and I appreciated that about when we had Councilor Pitts, is that was would come up when we would talk about that. So I do appreciate that perspective. So I think that's part of it for me, is that there's this fine line between this work is very relational, and so we need people that have relationships and who are very grounded in Springfield, and it's helpful to diversify that as much as possible, which is why I'm supporting Callie.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Councilor Will?
Let's get moving. I'm vote for Callie.
Okay, Councilor Weber.
Just in response to Councilor Rodley, I don't know how the Rotary factors into this. I mean, that's just an organization people serve in. It's a place to become a member, part of the community. Every Rotarian does that in a different way. They're involved in different spaces. They become people of really value community service in a huge way. And that's really the only kind of crossroad I see there. I also was a renter for many years. I have a son and daughter who both rent. So I do think that we have that viewpoint on this council and an appreciation for what it means to be a renter and how challenging that really is in today's world. I don't think we're missing that perspective.
All right. I think we're going to try this again and see if and see where we're at, unless anybody wants to add anything else.
Okay.
Let's try it again.
Okay, let's try it again. All right, I'm starting the second vote. Counselor Buck,
I will say I was a little surprised to hear Councilor Rodley say that Rotary is a negative for her. So I think that kind of nudged me a little bit. I'm going to vote for Luke this time.
okay. Counselor Stout,
Luke.
Counselor Weber,
Luke.
Counselor Rodley,
And I would just like to clarify, since we're all getting tired, that Rotary is not a negative. It's just, I'm interested in balance. I think it's fantastic that folks are involved in Rotary and Lions Club and Girl Scouts and all of the things. I'm still voting for Callie.
Counselor Mo.
Callie.
Okay, this vote is 3 for McAllister, 2 for Ackland. You could do more discussion. You can back out and try a different process, or you can provide me with direction what you'd like to do.
I think it depends on, I'm looking at people to talk about how hard they're dug in here, right? Because we got to figure out a way through this. Our responsibility is to choose somebody. The two perspectives that I would offer, having done this a minute, is, look, I was 31 when I joined the council. Like, young folks can make pretty great counselors. I do think we are missing a vet, right? Like, that is something this community values. And then I think the last point that I would think about is just asking people to think broadly around what completes us as a team. And I'm not describing who I want or not want, and if we keep going, I'll get more involved in that. But I think the question becomes what rounds us out as a group. And I would ask you as a group to think about how dug in you are, because if we can keep doing this and repeating this vote for a very long time, but we got to figure out a way forward. We're not obligated to stick with these two. We could go back to somebody else if that could get us to 4. Does anybody want to jump in here? Yeah.
Oh. I guess the only thing that I'll say is, out of the 5 of us, I think I'm the least dug in here. I feel like I see merit both ways, and I'm pretty conflicted. So I'm putting that out there. Not that makes me a great decision maker at the moment here.
And remember this very important fact. This isn't about getting one person to, you got to get to 4 here, right? So we got to figure out how we can get to 4. So I think what we should do here is let Mary Bridget call it again. And if we're still stuck, then I think we back up and have questions. We talk about the other 2 candidates we walk past and see if somebody could get to 4 around there, around a second choice. Does that work for folks?
Okay, so I will call the vote again between the 2 candidates, Ackland and McAllister. Counselor Buck.
I'm going to stay with Luke for right now.
Counselor Stout.
Luke.
Counselor Weber.
Luke.
Counselor Rodley.
Callie.
And Counselor Mo.
Callie.
Okay, so now, as the mayor discussed, we can back out of this voting method. You can have further conversation about all of the 5 candidates, and then just tell me when you're ready to do a vote, and I can do the vote with the same method where I just call.
Counselor Rodley.
Okay, this is exciting. If we were to pull off the top 2 and go to a second choice, I think my second choice would be CJ.
Let's see. I know you broke the whole system. So before we start calling out names here, I think people got to jump in to see what they think is a way forward, right? Again, we're not creating obligations for herself. We're not going to stumble into appointing somebody by accident. But if we can't, if you're so dug in that we're not going to move on the top two, I think the question I have is there somebody on the bottom? Is there a third person who's your third person? And maybe we can have Mary Bridget just ask for your third person and just take a temperature check to see if maybe there's a path there.
Okay, so then now I will call the vote in the same order, asking for what Mayor Van Gordon has termed as a third person, so not one of the two top candidates. Councillor Buck.
I just want to clarify, Mary, here. I'm voting for someone other than Luke and Callie because they're our top
right?
two. So the next one.
Yes, and I want to be very clear on this. I'm just asking for who people's third person is so we can talk about that person. If somebody stumbles into 4 here, right, we are saying they're not going to get appointed.
Correct. I would think of this as like a straw man ballot where, like you said, you're just taking the temperature to see if there's if 1 or 2 candidates emerge that are different than the other 2.
I'm just going to trust I don't understand, but I'm going to trust the process here, and I'm just going to make my vote. So if I was going down to number 3, I would probably look at CJ Mann.
Okay, Stout.
Hard pick, but I'd still stick with Ms. Quadros.
Weber.
Jill Quadros.
Radley.
CJ Mann.
Mo.
I don't have a third person, but Jill would be that.
Okay. So that's by my count 2 for this straw person ballot. 2 for Mann, 3 for Quadros. Is that right? My math right there. Okay.
I think the 6th counselor would be convenient here.
See how important it is, the full council.
Councilor Rodley.
I could support Jill. Yeah, if it gets my vote. Yeah.
I mean, as a number 3, I could support Jill too.
Okay, so I'm checking with Steve. So I think we have a couple of choices here. I don't want people to force people off their top 2 picks, so we can stop and talk about the top 2. Or if people are comfortable that they could get around Jill for their number 1 pick, so we get to somebody, we can do that too. So I would recommend we don't have Mary Bridget call anybody right now because we're going to get ourselves stuck again. But instead, sort of talk a little bit about what path you want to take, right? Because if people are comfortable with going with a third person, that we could get to 4, or if you want to spend more time trying to hash out this other question between Luke and Callie. I know people are getting tired. I knew this was going to be a long one. Anybody? Okay, Councilor Weber.
So I just want to remind everyone again that this is an appointment and the voters do get to decide this ultimately in just a few short months. Whoever chooses to put their name in the hat there and run the campaign and do all the things, ultimately will be selected by the community. So just kind of throwing that out there as we're considering what our next move is.
Okay. But we also need you guys to weigh in about what you think the next move is, because unfortunately for everybody, I don't get a vote here and we're not taking public participation, but I appreciate it. Thank you though. Councilor Buck.
I'm curious, and I guess I'll direct this at you, Mr. Mayor. Since you're not voting in this, I wonder if there's a way we could discuss if what it would take to move somebody. And we have 4 counselors that seem to have strong feelings here, and I really appreciate that. And I'm wondering if that's maybe a tack to go. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. That could be an incredibly bad idea. I'm just asking the question of you.
No, I think people opening up and talking about how to work their way through this would be perfectly appropriate. Right? Because somebody's going to have to make a decision here. And I would tell you, well, here's my advice. Our number one responsibility to the public is to get to somebody here, right? Like coming away and not having selected anybody is a huge mistake. So we have to figure out how to get at least 4 people comfortable with some sort of decision. But it's going to require you guys sharing your thinking and being willing to kind of jump in and move around. Councilor Weber.
I want to go back a minute to the amount of public comment that we have heard for both Callie and for Luke. A lot of it was repeated tonight. Those are folks that we've heard from before through the written avenue. So I just want to keep that in mind that they're not necessarily new voices. Some are, but not all of them. Yes, some are, but not all of them. Mr. McAllister also received a lot of really strong support and I think really good character references from the community. So the community perspective is here, and I think we need to appreciate that.
We're looking for Councilor Rodley.
And I completely agree with Councilor Weber. I think having the community perspective has been very, very robust. And we also got several letters for Jill, I would say. So that's real too. And I also appreciate Councilor Weber talking about the fact that this is like a 6-month appointment or so for somebody to run for this is also fantastic. And it'd be great to see 3 or 4 people run for the seat as well as try to go for an appointment. So I just wanted to just second that and say that the community involvement has been fantastic.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in here? So I think I'm looking for feedback on 2 paths. Do you want to vote on your top 2 again, or can people rally around a third choice here?
Our duty here is to vote for one, and I still only vote for Callie.
Okay. What about for this side?
The difficulty about this decision is not, I mean, well, yes, it's the candidate, but the difficulty is really, are we in some way giving a leg up to the candidate who wants to file in the fall? And I think that's the biggest concern I have, is to say, okay, in some way, by choosing an appointment, do we in fact give a leg up to somebody? If our council, and this is one of those things where I've had to learn how to work together with this group, and my respect for my colleagues has grown tremendously. That said, I am more comfortable is saying, like, yes, I do have my top choice. I have my reasons for that, and that's all well and good. But I also very much appreciate and like Ms. Quadros as an appointment, especially if we're still talking about this is to get us so that we have 6 members, because we don't function as well without 6. It's very hard if any of us need to miss any time on council unless we have 6 there. So if we're still at an impasse and we can consider Ms. Quadros as a viable candidate, I would be supportive of her. This is more just me thinking out loud. So.
I think that I wholeheartedly support, some of the things that have been said by Councilor Weber as well as Councilor Rodley and Councilor Stout, that ultimately this isn't really about our decision. This is about what the voters say in November. And I really, really do encourage all the members, all the people who took the time to apply to run. That having been said, I also feel like the community has given input, on this for in large support for two candidates, and so for me, I struggle a little bit with picking a third. If the reason is, and I'm unclear, so help me if I'm getting this wrong, but if we go to choice number 3 because we can't agree on choice number 1 and 2, but that's who the community is really advocating for. So I'm a little confused with that.
That's a great question. To Councillor Stout's point, right, whoever we select is probably going to have a leg up if they want to run in November, because they will effectively run as a semi-incumbent. My point is that our responsibility ultimately resides outside of the political considerations about what happens in the ballot box. That is the public's responsibility to deal with. We have rules and a process to make sure that we can care for the public's interest, which is to fill up a vacant council seat up until this point. So what I'm asking that you consider is, outside of who your number one choice is, our duty still remains to the public that they need somebody to sit in the Ward 4 spot. And it's going to take 4 of us to get there. Well, 4 of you guys to get there, to be able to do that. And when I bring up a third option, it's to take everybody's temperature to say, if everybody could get to a third option, then that gets us to 4. That meets our responsibility to the public. If we can negotiate around the top 2 people and find somebody to get to 4, then that's what we should do. But the idea that we would leave the seat open or do something else wouldn't make any sense. So go ahead, Councillor Rodley.
And I really appreciate the question that you're asking, Councillor Buck, because, this is such a perfect example of like compromise in real time, right? Which doesn't always feel great. And it's like, how do we meet our obligation? How do we do our very best and be willing to find ways that we can come to a decision together? So I appreciate that question. I'm just kind of asking us to dig into that.
Okay, so we feel stuck, which is fine. I think if people don't have anything else to say, then maybe we try voting again and see if that triggers some conversation. It is getting pretty late, so I think we need to consider that. But go ahead, Councillor Buck.
No, I'm just trying to get your attention. Councillor Stout.
Councillor Stout.
This is tricky. So I think why don't we call the vote? I mean, I'm going to withdraw my request to speak, and then we'll see how the next vote goes, and then I might chime in.
All right, Bridget.
So am I calling a real vote?
We're calling a real vote.
We're calling a real vote.
Asking for what people's number one preference is, right? We're not asking them to rally around a third person. We're just asking them to state the straight up who they want to fit in Ward 4.
Okay. All right. I will start again with Councillor Buck.
I feel like where I was at before was Luke, and I don't feel like I've the discussion really hasn't moved me back to Callie based on our deliberations. So Luke.
Stout.
Luke.
Weber.
Luke.
Rodley. Callie. Mo.
Callie.
Okay. Councillor Stout?
So I ran for the state representative office in 2022, And one of the worst experiences, one of the most wonderful experiences of my life was sitting down with Betsy Johnson, who I loved as a governor candidate, and I still do today. She was exceptional. But one of the worst things that ever happened to me in that process was that I got a call from one of the Republicans saying, "You shouldn't have shown up with Betsy Johnson at an event." And I was very concerned at that moment. And it felt very compromising. I discussed this with my wife, and I said, so that's how we become all cogs in the machine. And I hated that moment, and I hated myself in that moment, and I promised myself never to do that again. One of my deep concerns about Ms. Ackland is perhaps her advocacy with the library has come at the behest of another political figure in town. That's certainly her choice, but it's also there. That said, let's just bring that into the open. That is a big concern to me. But do I think she would be an exceptional candidate? Absolutely, if I heard her voice come through more clearly. The person that presented herself at the Planning Commission appointment seemed very different with all of the subsequent conversations that we had and all of the continuous library comments. It was very concerning because what I felt was happening on the Planning Commission level was that I had voted for somebody who was different than who was appearing before us week after week after week to support the library. I am a library supporter. Up here, I love the library. My kids go to the library all the time. It is a painful thing to look at this in and out, and trying to balance this in and out every single week is so hard. So I would be willing to support Callie if I simply had a promise from her, and I know this is a bit rhetorical, to bring more of her own voice forward. In the words of Fred Rogers, it's you I like. Not the things you wear, not the way you do your hair, but it's you I like. The way you are right now, the way down deep inside you. Not the things that hide you, not all your friends, but what's deep inside you. It's you that I like. Thank you.
Councilor Wadley.
Oh, you can tell some of us have been at this since I start work at 7. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the vulnerability and you sharing that. And I think that one of the challenges is many of the decisions we make up here are governing decisions. This is inherently a political decision, which doesn't feel great. And we've all got those emails from people. And we've all I've heard more than many of, if you do this and don't do that. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable about that. I'm going to share, I'm going to match you with that and say, for me, I do not consider myself to be an activist at all. You all have worked with me. And a lot of folks come here as activists. And I think it is very helpful for people to get to see what it is like to have to make decisions on the other side of the table. Because when you are on that side, you can be 100% right. You can have, you can be so right. And when you get on the inside and learn all of the things that go into it, like you're talking about with the library, and I think it is helpful to have people to be able to make that bridge, and maybe they can and maybe they can't. And so I think for me, part of my experience with Callie is I think it's helpful if someone gets to see what it looks like on the other side, to have to navigate and negotiate with people that don't necessarily think that you're right. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Councilor Stout for breaking the vulnerability mold here. One of the things that really stood out for me during the interview process was the fact that Callie, what felt like to me every comment or guidance or direction or different aspects of the conversation we had were basically repeated back to me. And I could also identify probably which counselors helped with the other components of her responses. So what I'm saying here is I need to be able to trust the person that sits up here to be their real self, and to be able to to make decisions from a place of neutrality. We have some big decisions coming ahead of us. And I just really don't feel like that is where she is right now.
Councilor Buck.
So my vote right now is for Luke, but if in fairness, I mean, speaking to your point, Councilor Stout, Callie reached out. She said, "Hey, can I meet with you?" And I said, "Send me an email." Every time I saw her for a couple of months, I'm like, "Hey, where's my email?" I got my email and she met with me. It's really hard to say, "Hey, I've gotten feedback that this is how I might be seen. Is that how you see me?" And I said, there's that aspect to you. I don't think that's all of you. She goes, "Okay, well, what is it that I can do to broaden that perspective?" We had a conversation about that, and then, I watched what's going to happen here, and she implemented that feedback, not just with conversations, but truly in how she kind of approached things. I saw a shift in her that kind of reflected who Callie is. And so I have a fair amount of faith that, when Callie because what I told Callie was I need in a counselor up here is somebody who will speak their mind, have their own perspective, but we have to work together as a team. And if you can't trust your team members, if you can't trust that when they're having conversations in town that they're not supporting not only the community but their team members, that's a real issue. And Callie understood that and she spoke to that. So, I mean, there is that piece that I think that we all hear from a lot of different perspectives. And I think, I have a fair amount of confidence that Callie will listen to a lot of different perspectives. And I also think that through library advocacy, she's probably damaged some relationships in various aspects of town. But I also think she's willing to take the feedback to try and repair those things. And it's a fair point that Luke has not damaged, to my knowledge. I don't know. I haven't heard of that. And the relationships in some of those same areas. But again, I've seen him work to make sure that he's fair and balanced as well. And so I think when it comes to would I trust Callie to be Callie and not speak for anybody but Springfield, I think probably I believe she would, and I have seen evidence that she can. So if that is a consideration, I think there's a possibility that she really has that capacity. And again, it's hard to vote for somebody that maybe you've seen two different sides of and you're not really sure who that person is. But I think when you talk to her and you say, "Hey, where are you really at on any given subject?" I think there's some honesty there. And so again, I think that it's hard to sway one way or the other for me because I see the merits of both. But when it comes to integrity, I've seen evidence that Callie is willing to stand behind hers.
Okay, I'm going to say two things. First of all, thank you folks for diving in and talking about some of the real issues. And thank you to the public for just being patient as we work our way through, our thoughts and our opinions and our take. And I can't even imagine how awkward it is for the candidates to have, sit here while we talk about, you guys. But please just be patient as we work through this. We can do two things. Mary Bridget's probably going to tell us that we don't have to be bound by a process here, that it's a political appointment and we could do whatever we want. Would it help to bring one of them or two of them up and ask them more questions? Councilor Buck.
I really appreciate Councilor Weber and Councilor Stout talking about their concerns. Kind of like to hear that from Mo and Rodley, if you're willing to, on Luke, what would you need to what would you need to speak to? Because we're asking candidates to come up. I mean, I think that's a hard thing to do.
It is a hard thing to do, right? We got to keep working the problem until we figure out a way forward.
All right.
We're gonna stall for station identification and let Councilor Weber go.
I'm not sure I remember now what I was gonna say. Getting a little rummy. I do remember now, sorry. I still need to be able to believe that the person that we put up here with us is being their authentic self. Yes, Counselor Buck, I do believe that Callie did take our feedback. But again, I felt it was just repeated to us in an interview process. I haven't seen it in action yet. That's where I don't know that she can or can't take that feedback and be that trusted person for me. Because I haven't had enough time to witness it. I can say that I have known Luke for 6 years. We're not best friends. We don't hang out all over, like we don't hang out. We don't share space in many ways. We share common interests. We share a desire to serve this community in the best way possible and make the best decisions for the citizens that live here. I do know that is Luke McAllister because I've seen it.
Great, thank you. Do either one of you want to jump in here? Councilor Mo, you guys got
one thing about, got to get the microphone here. One thing about Callie, when she was being interviewed, she talked about her experience in the Navy and how that trained her thinking to look at situations differently than it normally did. And I like that because I'd like to have that capacity up here in the council for somebody to look at something different than we can and help us think problems through. So that's why I select Callie.
And I just want to say to you all that after sitting through this, running for office will be a breeze, honestly. You can listen to people talk about you. I think that and I appreciate the call out because, I've talked about what I appreciate about Callie. I will say I did meet with Luke as well. And for me, the difference was in my initial conversation, and I really only had one conversation with Luke, he didn't even really seem to understand what the role of a city councilor was. And so it was much more of a vibey kind of a conversation. Whereas I realized that, Callie comes at things with like much more of a directness of like, here's what I want to do and here's what I want to work on. So I came away from that conversation being like, I don't even know if he knows what he's getting into. And it didn't come across as like this strong like desire or need to do it. It felt to me more like other people were like, you should do a thing. And so it's no negativity. It's no particular judgment. It was just a difference in how serious Callie was taking it. At least in the conversation with me. And again, I didn't have 6 years of working with Luke and I haven't had 6 years of working with Callie. So it was just going from the conversations, the way they reacted and interacted with me. Callie's was much more serious.
Weber.
I appreciate that, Councilor Rodley. I think there is a difference in styles here for sure. I will say that I don't think that makes either one of them unprepared. I just know that I'm just going to go back to the trust issue for me. And I'm just not there yet with trusting that Callie is going to show us her authentic self up here.
So I'm going to weigh in onto this because we're throwing around this term authenticity quite a bit. Callie didn't strike me as inauthentic at all. So like my take on the conversation that I had is I've known many young professionals, and sometimes when they want to do a great job, they want to take coaching, right? It wasn't. I didn't get the impression that what I saw was anything short of her authentic self. I did get the impression as somebody was growing into their professional career that they were that she was looking for and taking a lot of the coaching in and hadn't hit that point where she kind of just filtered out what was useful and what was not. But I did not read it as inauthentic at all. Okay. We're still at the same spot. Okay. So does anybody have an opinion on how, like, we can bring people up? We can talk about other issues. We have to figure out a way forward. So what do you guys think?
Okay, since we're thinking outside the box,
We are thinking outside the box.
there is no box anymore.
So the train has left the station.
So, um,
And I assure the public our jokes get better the longer this goes on.
so I'm wondering, maybe Sean, if you could ask the candidates if they want to come up and speak, because I mean, we've said a lot of different things, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know, but I'd like to consider their feelings.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Weber.
I just have to, when Mayor Van Gordon was appointed to to his position, I applied for this vacant seat. I didn't win it that night. The council selected somebody else who honestly I thought was less prepared for this role. Because and I think it's fair to say that nobody really knows, really knows, like you can observe and you can know what the semantics of this role are, but really sitting here and facing public criticism, facing public input on any and many things, while it's a privilege for us to sit up here and hear that. And I know it probably feels like sometimes we're just like, well, I know sometimes I'm just exhausted. Like right now I'm exhausted. But nobody really knows what that feels like to take that and own it every single week or conversation or issue, right? It's a lot. And I do think that it's important that folks know that. And that there is another path forward. Again, I wasn't selected that night. I was confused by that, to be perfectly honest, but it's the council's decision ultimately, and ultimately the decision is made by this body to fill a spot that we, with somebody that we feel will help us get through this short period of time. I still feel like our budget discussions coming up would really benefit from a fresh perspective, one that hasn't been saturated in all of the different conversations we've been having over the last few months. Somebody who might see something a little bit differently, that's something that we've missed, something that we're just so absorbed in, we don't see it anymore. And again, that takes me back to Luke and his experiences in all of the places that he lives his life in. And he's got a lot of lived experience and past experience that has brought him to the person that he is today. And I really feel like a fresh perspective would be very helpful here.
Councilor Riley.
Well, I appreciate thinking about that. And if I was thinking about a fresh perspective as someone who's not like saturated in this stuff and hasn't been a part of it, then I go back to Jill as somebody that seemed very prepared and did a good job at the interview and has had other people recommend them. And I would, like I said, I could go with Jill.
What do people think? I mean, we could call like 7 different votes, but we're going to end up in the same spot. No.
So, Councilor Riley, does that mean you're changing your position to, look at Jill as would you be willing to look at Jill as your vote?
I would be willing to look at Jill as my vote.
Anybody else? All right. So Mary Bridget, if we decide to punt this conversation till like that is that is an option, is that correct?
That's correct. That is an option. You can come back for continued deliberation. You could arrive at a new voting method. Like you said, this is a political process, and you are the ones that determine the qualifications and the process. So if there's something that you think the process is lacking or other information, we can figure out procedurally how to get you there.
So I think, go ahead, Councilor Buck.
I guess I just want to remind all of us here that are voting, myself included, that by putting this vote off and by not finding a way to compromise and make a decision here and get it figured out tonight, we put that whoever gets appointed in a tougher spot. We have budget like in 20 minutes. And we have a lot of other things that are coming as we have a summer break and then just kind of jumping into it in the fall. And I feel like one of the things that I look at very hard is we benefit right now from two people on council, yourself and Corey Ladley, that very possibly might not be here next year. If you guys win your elections, we might lose your experience. And that means by putting off that candidate, that's time that they don't get to benefit. And they only get about 6 months if you guys win as it is, and less than that. So I would really urge us to find a way to compromise tonight to get this to November so the voters can decide. Because that's what we have to do. And I don't know what that looks like for folks, but I mean, I feel like it's unfair to put this off because what's already being asked of whoever we appoint is to get up to speed with the budget, which is a big deal in a very short amount of time. Mr. Rodley.
I 100% agree with you in terms of it's our job to make decisions, and some of them are hard, and we just work it until we figure it out. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so I think what we should do, like, I don't think this is going to go anywhere until we hear from them again. If I'm just really listening between you folks, and I'm looking out at them and to see if, if they would be willing to come up and maybe answer some additional questions. And I know, go ahead, Councilor Weber.
That's not going to help change my mind. Bringing Callie and Luke back up here isn't going to help me change my mind.
I'm very clear that you're very well dug into where you're at. But
well, let me finish.
Sure, go ahead.
But I would be willing to compromise with my fellow counselors and bring Jill into this. I think that she presented herself very well. She, I think she understands as much as anyone can until they actually sit here, what the role of a counselor is and how some of those decision-making opportunities can impact, just the community and that real world impact, right? You don't really know it until you're sitting here. So I could support Jill.
Okay. So why don't we try voting here? Because why don't we try, and we will, and I think considering all available candidates that you have, right? Like, I understand people are going to have to make some compromises. We're not going to get perfectly where we want. And I understand people are tired. So please do not cave because you're tired and just want to go home. If you're going to compromise, make sure that it's moving us forward. But I would say if people are okay, we would take votes on all three candidates and see if we can get there. Is that good?
How many votes did it take to get the Speaker of the House elected?
Stop it.
I told you our jokes got better. All right. MB, could you call?
Okay, I will start to call the vote. Counselor Buck,
I guess where I'm at, if I'm just being authentic on it, this is, I'm willing to compromise and vote for Callie, but I'm not. The public has just made it really clear in so many testimonies what they're telling us, and so I can support Callie, I can support Luke, and I like Jill very much, but I feel like if I'm listening to the public, that's not where I've spent hours looking at emails and listening to different conversations. And every time I get coffee, somebody mentions one of the two of them to me. So that's where I'm at. I could support Callie.
Counselor Stout,
I could support Jill.
Counselor Weber,
I could support Jill.
Counselor Rodley,
I could support Jill.
Counselor Mo.
Callie.
Okay. Counselor Buck, I would just offer that the testimony that we have is only a sampling of where the public is, and the real art to this work is to infer, where all 60,000 of our residents are. That's the hard weight. Do you guys want to vote again?
Not really, but okay, let's do it.
Okay, so we'll do another vote with the three candidates. Counselor Buck,
Well, given the feedback that this is a City of Springfield decision and we have to make a decision tonight, I can support Jill.
Stout,
I can support Jill.
Weber,
Jill.
Rodley,
Jill.
Mo.
Wow, what a turnaround. I guess I'll have to vote for Jill.
Okay, that's 5 votes for candidate Jill Quadros.
Okay. Congratulations. I will waive the rule and let people applaud because I know people are tired if they feel they need to. Could you talk to us about the next steps?
Sure. So the next step is for the interim counselor for Ward 4 to be sworn in. That's tentatively planned for April 27th. We'll contact Ms. Quadros about the details about that. We can start the training and talking with her ahead of time, and we'll get that rolling. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I
And
guess
obviously no further business from the city attorney.
I think we are done. We're adjourned.